Let's kick some dicks.
Welcome, everybody, to another fantastic episode of Recording in Progress, where we stop the busy hustle and bustle of life and we slow that life down so we can all get some progress in life. With me is
Are you high?
my no
I think you.
is my online hetero life mate, not Silent Jim. How's it going, Jim? Did 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 I did I break your concentration there a little bit with that reference?
Hold on, let me type this out on my phone. Eggplant emoji.
Yeah, we're gonna be referencing things, and eggplant emojiing may be happening, but first we're gonna talk about a little press F for respects. A noted actor who's seen in a movie we're gonna be talking about today died recently, and well, Google Chrome's trying to fix family and not let me pull up my link. Why are you failing?
Why would you use Google Chrome?
Actually, I'm just using Firefox.
Oh.
Robert Forster, resurgent Oscar nominee from Jackie Brown, dies at the age of 78. The medium cool actor also starred for David Lynch in Mulholland Drive and Twin Peaks after Quentin Tarantino resuscitated his career. Robert Forster, stalwart leading man whose Oscar-nominating performance as bail bondsman in Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown made him one of Hollywood's most heartwarming comeback stories, has died at the age of 78. Foster died Friday at his Los Angeles home of brain cancer. Oh, that's depressing. He died like after his most recent movie came out. That's unfortunate. With his chiseled good looks, steely chin, and earnest gaze, Foster exuded a raw truthfulness. He made his debut opposite Marlon Brando, Elizabeth Taylor, and John Huston's Reflections in A Golden Eye. Then sparked as an ethically challenged cameraman in Haskell Wexler's ultra-realistic Medium Cool. You know, that's one thing about movies is I want to find a way to kind of dive deeper into 60s movies. I don't really have a good frame of reference on 60s and some 70s movies. Foster took to playing the on no-nonsense heroic title characters on television to build on his stardom, portraying a dogged 30s detective on NBC's Banyan, which premiered in 1971, a Native American police deputy in New Mexico on ABC's Nakia, which bowed in 1974. Or these shows lasted for just 15 and 14 episodes respectively before getting canceled. Foster captained a spaceship in Disney's ambitious sci-fi thriller The Black Hole. Oh no. But it proved to be a box office disappointment. Did you ever watch The Black Hole?
No.
You need to watch that movie at some point. That's actually a fairly good movie. It was a movie that was too far ahead of its time. Other lowlights soon followed, including Alligator, The Kinky Coaches and the Pom Pom Pussycats, Vigilante, Hollywood Harry, and Satan's Princess. By the early 90s, the actor was down to supporting roles in such low-budget efforts as Maniac Cop, 3 Badge of Silence. They made 3 Maniac Cop movies? Body Chemistry, 3 Point of Seduction, and Scanner Cop 2, and supplementing his income with speaking engagements. I went 21 months without a job. I had 4 kids. I took any job I could, Foster told the Chicago Tribune in 2018, raising and then lowering his hands to indicate his fortunes. My career went like this for 5 years and that for 27. Every time it reached a low level, I thought it could tolerate. It dropped some more, and near the end, I had no agent, no manager, no lawyer, no nothing. I was taking whatever fell through the cracks. A fan of Foster since he was a kid, Tarantino had brought the actor in to audition for the part of an aging gangster, Joe Cabot, in 1992's Reservoir Dogs. But he had his heart set on casting Lawrence Tierney. Tarantino never forgot Foster, however, and as he was crafting the screenplay for Jackie Brown, an adaptation of Elmore Leonard's 1992 novel Rum Punch, which is not related to Rum Diary, he wrote Max Cherry with him in mind. Years had gone by and I ran into him in a coffee shop. By then, my career was really, really dead, Foster recalled in a 2018 interview with Fandor. And we blah-blahed for a few minutes, and then 6 months later, he showed up at the same coffee shop with a script in his hands and handed it to me. When I read it, I could hardly believe that he had me in mind for Max Cherry, except for nothing else made any sense. So when I asked him about it, he said, yeah, it's Max Cherry that I wrote for you. That's when I said to him, I'm sure they're not going to let you hire me. He said, I hire anybody I want. And that's when I realized I was going to get another shot at a career. After Jackie Brown, Foster was inundated with offers and worked in such films as Psycho in 1998, which wasn't good. Me, Myself, and Irene, which also wasn't good. Mulholland Drive, which was excellent.
I
Human
really need to
Nature
go
that I
through
don't-
and watch all these David Lynch movies because I haven't even seen Eraserhead yet. It's on my docket.
Oh, God,
Is that
been
an
my
October movie? Because I'm trying to catch up on Halloween or spooky movies.
You would do that after Halloween.
Okay.
Like Mike, Charlie Angel's Full Throttle, Fireball, Lucky Number 11, and The Descendants. In 2013, Foster was cast as the key Breaking Bad character, the Disappearer, in the AMC series, penultimate episode. With the show's team citing Max Cherry as an inspiration, he reprised the role in El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie which opened in theaters and hit Netflix Friday. Foster also played General Edward Clegg in the action film Olympus Has Fallen, which was not a good movie, and in the 2016 sequel, and gave a stirring performance in What They Had in 2018 as a distraught husband trying to care for his wife, Blythe Danner, as she battles Alzheimer's. So yeah, that's Robert Foster, and he had a good run, did a lot of cool things,
Fix a lot of
And,
vacuums.
fixed a lot of vacuums, and cleaned up some messes for people.
Yep.
Now, the next story we're going to talk about, we had a link to. We had a link to it as recently as before the show started, but Facebook banned it. And it's also a story about Facebook banning something. So there was a burn victim who did a personal video on Facebook talking about how he struggled and tried to recover from his burning. But his video of an actual human burn victim talking was deemed too violent for Facebook. And so one of his friends also posted on Facebook, "This is BS."
I guess I could just post this picture. Okay.
And so, Jim, what do you think about Facebook banning actually handicapped and disabled people from being able to access Facebook? I mean, other than thinking, he's already been a burn victim, so he's now been saved from being on Facebook. Because, I mean, I know that's what you were thinking.
Yes.
Or some
So,
variation.
The more
thereof.
people get banned from Facebook or leave Facebook, and I don't care what the reasons for them leaving. I guess now there was a movement on Twitter to get people to get off Facebook because, oh my God, Zuckerberg had met up with Tucker Carlson. We can't have Nazism in our social media. So now they're talking about leaving Facebook. I'm like, good. Hey, whatever
Good.
bullshit reason you want to leave Facebook, I'm all for it.
Exactly.
You make up whatever garbage you want. I don't care. You're deleting Facebook. I'm all for it. You got banned from Facebook for your video about your burns. Well, I'm very sorry that you're going through this awful time, but on the bright side, you're not on Facebook anymore. I mean, you survived one fire, and I'm glad that you're finally out of the other dumpster fire.
But as a wise man once said, the fire rises.
Yes, the fire rises.
So we talked a little bit about how everybody was dumb about what was going on with Hong Kong. Well, guess what? More people have been dumb about Hong Kong. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. And we're going to talk about a person who wasn't dumb about Hong Kong. So the first story comes from Kotaku, a known purveyor of internet filth and garbage. Blizzard gives 6 months ban to college team that held up free Hong Kong sign. So you remember when we were talking about this story, Jim, that they said, no, we're not going to ban you. And the kids said, no, we're going to stay out as a sign of protest. Well, turns out they have reversed their decision to not ban these kids for 6 months.
Nice. By the way, for the record, Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh.
For the record, Tiananmen Square Massacre. Correct. Yep.
So Here is a quote from their email for Blizzard that this team got. Every voice matters at Blizzard, and we strongly encourage everyone in our community to share their viewpoints in the many places available to express themselves. However, the official broadcast needs to be about the game and competition, and to be a place where all are welcome, including people who like to harvest the organs of political prisoners. They need to have a safe space too. I mean, it's about time that people who want to take Muslims to literal concentration camps and force them to not be Muslims have a safe space where they can freely express themselves without judgment. Don't you agree, Jim?
Of course.
So, of course, people on Twitch are, mocking Blizzard in the Hearthstone Twitch chat. So they're getting banned now. Ban hammers around for everybody. In February, Blizzard announced a new Hearthstone esports program called the Masters Tour. Pit the game's best players against each other for a chance to win the acclaim of the internet and potentially a lot of money. The European leg of the tour is currently happening in Bucharest, and you can catch the action over on Twitch. But there's a catch. Anybody who posts anything pro Hong Kong seems to be earning an automatic 24-hour chat ban, as reported by .esports.
So you're telling me that that I shouldn't go over to Twitch and say Tiananmen Square Massacre or Winnie the Pooh or Taiwan flag emoji?
Yeah, apparently not. That said, the ban seems inconsistent. On Friday afternoon over at the Play Hearthstone Twitch channel, the chat filled up with pro Hong Kong messages that didn't seem to be getting deleted. Probably because the mods were sleeping. Am I right?
Mods are sleeping.
This might be because the channel was showing a rerun of an earlier match, and the moderators weren't around to see what was happening. Of course, mods were sleeping. Time to shitpost. Either way, Blizzard did not reply to a request for comment. Why not? They seem pretty proud of, banning people.
Are you saying that
free
they
expression.
Are you saying that they're shit posting, or that they're poo posting?
I think we should call it poo posting in this context.
Okay.
There have been a series of massive protests in Hong Kong this summer, kicked off by the introduction of an extradition bill, which is no longer on the docket. As the summer went on, Hong Kong police escalated their use of force to playing tear gas, beanbag rounds, and in some cases, live fire. At the same time, a number of U.S. companies with interests in China have tried to discourage their employees from speaking out in support of the protesters. Most notably, in the case of the NBA. Actually, related to that, I was reading an article that said that LeBron James, on behalf of the players, went to try to convince the head of the NBA to fire the general manager who said free Hong Kong, because it could cost the players money.
Oh.
Aren't you glad that we know where LeBron James' real concerns lie?
Well, he is a bitch.
Blizzard, whose games are a big business.
What did that girl call him? A pussy ass bitch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Blizzard, whose games are big business in China, has run into similar issues. On October 8th, the company issued a year-long ban to Ning Blitzchung Huacheng, a prominent professional Hearthstone player from Hong Kong, after he said a pro-Hong Kong slogan in a post-game interview. They also stripped him of his tournament winnings, which they actually undid now. After public outcry, Blizzard reduced the length of the ban to 6 months and reinstated his prize money. Although a week later, the company suspended 3 Hearthstone players for 6 months after they held up a sign that said "Free Hong Kong, Boycott Blitz." So basically, the kids didn't want to not be banned because that wouldn't be fair. So when they revised the ban, they got banned so that they could be fair. Isn't fairness great, Jim?
Yeah.
It's great to be fair. We should all try to be more fair.
Yeah.
And so
no poo posting in this chat, or we'll be fair to you.
No poo posting. And somebody has decided to continue this protest. A fan has raised $43,000 to hand out "Stand with Hong Kong" T-shirts at the Lakers season opener. So Jim, you've made more T-shirts than I have for point of sale purposes. Let's say you were making T-shirts at cost to just give away to people.
It depends on the size. It would depend on if he's spending 43 grand, You probably are
look,
paying for maybe $4 or $5 per shirt, or no? You're probably paying less than that. You're probably paying like $3 or $4 per shirt.
so like
Pretty much,
11,000.
probably everybody in the stadium could get one.
Well, no, the Lakers Stadium's big, but like 10, 11,000 people easily can get a Stand with
Yeah,
Hong Kong T-shirt.
it would depend on many different factors, but if he's dropping 40, I've never dropped $1,000 on shirts, let alone 43 of them.
His original goal for the project was $20,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
So,
Jim, if you were in a town with an NBA stadium and you had a ticket,
we got a
would you get that?
WNBA.
Yeah, would you wear that shirt and risk getting thrown out?
Yes. I would put it on underneath my, because I usually wear like work shirts or button-up shirts. I would put it on underneath, and then eventually, like halfway through the game or something, I'd be like, "It's a little hot in here. It's a little warm. I better take off this overshirt." Yeah, put it on under my jacket if it's cold enough. Yeah, that's a good idea. You should do that. Yeah. That's a smart way of doing it, because if you try to walk into the stadium, they're going to kick you out right away.
They're totally going to do that.
But if
now if it's 10,000 people, that's going to be a lot harder to do.
Yeah.
But there
pretty much the whole crowd.
But there is a good guy in this story about what's going on with Hong Kong and China and the studios being a little bitch. And in the NBA being a little bitch, and the game companies being a little bitch. Quentin Tarantino holds firm, won't recut Once Upon a Time for China.
Oh?
Quentin Tarantino will not recut Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to placate Chinese censors, Variety has confirmed. The decision likely means that the Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt buddy dramedy, an ode to the late 60s Tinseltown, won't be making an appearance in China, at least in non-pirated form. Tarantino previously ran afoul of higher-ups in the country with Django Unchained and ultimately agreed to make some excisions that eliminated scenes of graphic violence and nudity after the film was yanked from release. Didn't matter much when it was re-released in edited form. The film went on to flop in China, eking out $2.7 million, even as it grossed mightily $425.4 million globally. Once Upon a Time, which boasts DiCaprio, a favorite with Chinese audiences, in a lead role, along with another A-lister, Pitt, may have fared better.
So, what are they upset about? China.
So China. We're going to get to that here in a minute. We haven't gotten to that part of the news story, because this is an unfolding story they wanted to talk about last time he tried to get something banned. What's interesting is Tarantino actually helped produce Chinese propaganda movie one with Jet Li in it.
Oh.
So it's not like he's, doesn't have some cachet with the Chinese film censors. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is distributed by Sony Pictures, but Tarantino has final cut on the film, so any alterations have to meet with his approval. Chinese authorities didn't tell Sony what scenes were objectionable, but an exhibitor source said the movie's October 25th release was put on hold after Shannon Lee, the daughter of Bruce Lee, filed a complaint to China's National Film Administration. She objected to the on-screen depiction of her late father as an arrogant and boastful man who struggles to defeat Pitt's character in a fight. So, this is the same Bruce Lee who hated communist China, and who had to run away from Hong Kong. And his daughter is being a little bitch like this. I mean, that's pretty despicable, don't you think?
Yeah.
And also, have you ever watched any of those old videos of Bruce Lee?
Yes.
He was a cocky, arrogant guy.
Yeah, he was.
It was not an inaccurate portrayal. And it was loosely based on an actual fight that actually did happen. So,
by the way, I'm just now saying that Maude star Bill Macy died.
Oh.
See, I'm not too familiar with Maude. I know what Maude is, but I'm more familiar with his role.
B. Arthur?
Well, I'm familiar with B. Arthur from Golden Girls, but I'm more familiar with him in his role in one of the greatest comedy films of all time, The Jerk.
Classic.
Yes, which he was the guy who helped him sell his glasses invention.
Yeah,
I forget what it was called.
So
yeah, so pour one out for him too, I guess.
And pour one out for him. So we got some hot Star Wars goss that's come up. So Cosmic Book News, which is barely a legitimate, but mostly a trash tier garbage website. Star Wars Story Group dismantled. Kathleen Kennedy in CYA mode.
What is CYA?
Cover your assets in her case.
Oh.
It is being claimed the Lucasfilm Story Group has been dismantled, which follows the disappointments of both Star Wars The Last Jedi as well as the Han Solo movie. It is also being claimed that Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy is in full CYA mode. Cover your assets. This info comes from WD Magic Disney fan site message boards, who recently offered insider info about how the Rise of Resistance theme park is a complete disaster. While discussing questions on whether or not the SJWs have negatively impacted the film and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge theme park, the Star Wars Story Group and Kathleen Kennedy are brought up. Regarding the Star Wars Story Group, Disney created it in 2013 to keep track of Star Wars canon in order to assist writers and directors in development of the new Disney Star Wars stories. According to WD Pro forum member, the Star Wars Story Group was dismantled last year, which again follows the release of The Last Jedi and Solo. Just understand there's a difference between Disney and Lucasfilm Story Group of 2014-2018, which has now largely been dismantled. Forum member Tyrion offers the new Disney Star Wars doesn't offer any beloved characters, which is why the movies have failed, along with merchandise sales. While there's no big that was $1 billion mistake by Disney to not feature new characters as part of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge theme park and not originals. Blah, blah, blah. And there's rumors that Kevin Feige is coming in to fix Star Wars, but we actually have the forum post, so we're going to go deeper into that because that's actually kind of an interesting story. So we're going to go into this and go into a classic bit of bulletin boarding. Come on, buddy.
Wait, bulletin boards exist?
Bulletin boards still exist. All right. So WDY Pro, well-known member. And he's posting a link to Theme Park Insider. So here we got what I'm sure is supposed to be a self-congratulated panel for significant players behind Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Instead, it's a gaggle of incompetence. Expect any Q&A sessions to be screened beforehand. In order, we've got Scott Torbridge, who used his universal success to catapult himself into esoteric endeavors at Disney. Seldom if ever, blah, blah, blah. There's Anna DeShime, who screwed up her job so badly that she should honestly consider switching careers. So this guy goes into things. So now here's where it gets interesting for Star Wars. Margaret Kirsten is next up, and she's one of the trifecta of utterly destroying Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the other two being Carrie Hart, who used to run the Lucasfilm Story Group, and Carrie Beck. Their hubris of believing that George Lucas' Star Wars was a dead era and that new ideologically driven Star Wars was the vehicle to driving social change permeated everything about the Phantom, the Force Awakens, and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge developments. So what they're saying is basically the rot came in after the Force Awakens. They basically convinced Disney and Lucas management that this was a license to print money and you could do nothing wrong.
But they did.
Yeah. So let me scroll down here to some more things with the guy. Okay, so here's how it worked. Kirsten worked with Beck in coordinating Star Wars Galaxy Edge and Star Wars Disney canon. Beck acted as the liaison between Hart, head at the time of the Lucasfilm Story Group, all of which was part of Kennedy's purview. Kirsten isn't a Star Wars fan, nor was she familiar with it. Beck loathes the George Lucas Star Wars and has been a constant source of failure within Star Wars, including being the driving force behind Forces of Destiny, a feminist approach to Star Wars that failed spectacularly. It was like an all-female centered cartoon that they tried to launch. And Star Wars Resistance, which is the most recent cartoon, which they canceled after 2 seasons. And they're saying, no, we always intended it to be 2 seasons. Hart was eventually removed because she was actually viewed Star Wars as a vehicle for socio-political change. She became such a toxic figure that even Kathleen Kennedy viewed her as damaging to her career and legacy. I believe Hart is still under contract as a consultant to manage her ability to speak out against Kennedy, Disney, Lucasfilm. She is currently on the payroll as a consultant. Beck still works at Lucasfilm, but essentially has no power whatsoever as long as Kirsten is likely to depart Disney after some park thing launches. The change from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge celebrating all of Star Wars occurred just after The Force Awakens launched. While The Force Awakens was JJ's baby, so a lot of people on the internet who are like really deep into this whole like secret spy stuff going on with Disney, they suspect stuff like what's coming up here is that this is like a plant from J.J. Abrams. The Lucasfilm Story Group and Rian Johnson basically took the franchise in a totally different direction. Even before The Force Awakens launched, this wasn't just limited to The Last Jedi, but to all Star Wars properties. You could think of this as JJ lighting the fuse that made Star Wars bigger than ever, and the separate team viewing this success as a means to advance social agendas under their belief that Star Wars was too big to fail. However, Iger was unaware of the internal issues at Lucasfilm in which political ideologies had taken over until production for Rogue One revealed massive issues. Because Iger was unaware of the situation, he believed The Force Awakens meant that the public was head over heels for the new trilogy, and he immediately wanted to capitalize on it. And in doing so, he handed Lucasfilm's massive power over to WDI by the connections with Harrison, Beck, and Hart. This meant that all of WDI's plans, which is the Disney theme parks, were essentially being run through these three, with theme park experts hand-tied by the story group piggybacking off of JJ's massive success. While they were actually incompetent, whether you wonder if there was a tiny cantina, why there's basically no original trilogy characters, C-3PO, R2-D2, Yoda, etc., why there's no Star Wars music, etc., it's all because the land was not developed by people who knew how to develop a theme park expansion. At the time Iger became aware of the issues, it was too late to change direction without missing the Episode 9 hype window. Panic set in after The Last Jedi, second weekend drop-off set in, and the realization that Star Wars damage was accepted by Solo. Still, the attendance results were far beyond the lowest expectations they had. Further complicating how bad everything has been was that the fact that Chapek stepped in midstream and stripped out so many elements that could have mitigated the issues, mostly due to the belief that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge could be 2 rides and a retail space. Combined with the late game changes to move DHS's Star Wars Galaxy's Edge location to save approximately $500 million, and you have a perfect storm for 2 expansions that are utter failures at their intent. So I'm going to post the link to this in the doobly-doo here. So what do you think about some of this inside baseball stuff about Star Wars?
I think Libertarian Clips just hit the nail on the head.
I don't think it's been dead. I do think it's been sick.
What, do you like the Ewoks movies?
Better than Last Jedi.
Say what you want about The Last Jedi. At least it's watchable.
No.
Unlike the prequels.
I could watch 2 of the prequel movies.
I could watch The Last Jedi again. I'm just not going to be happy. I can't get through the prequels. I tried multiple times. I can't do it. I physically cannot get past the second. I can't get past the first half of Clone. It's an endurance trial to get through Phantom Menace. At least with The Last Jedi, there's something cool to look at. Everything in the prequels look ugly. And everybody is like too busy talking about taxes and trade federations. Or sand.
Exactly.
It's just like the choices that they make in The Last Jedi are really stupid.
Yeah. They're not good choices.
No, they're bad choices. But but what you get is a bad but watchable movie.
It's not watchable.
It's watchable.
But speaking of Rian Johnson, they had some interesting stuff on Twitter related to Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson deleted 20,000 tweets in February of 2018. He did it to hide his close friendship with Devin Faraci. Devin is an anti-Gamergate SJW who admitted to committing sexual assault. IndieWire was defending Devin as the real victim, and Rian nuked years of his tweets. So I'm going to post this little Twitter compilation here in the doobly-doo before we start poking into the Twitter. So Data Racer is always a good one for Star Wars stuff. And here's what someone on Reddit of all places said: if there's one lesson I hope Disney and Lucasfilm learns this, it's don't hire Twitter trolls to make Star Wars movies. All right, look, Disney, if you're willing to hire me to make a Star Wars movie, I will stop trolling on Twitter tomorrow. Because I've already trolled on Twitter today.
Yeah.
One of the things that baffles so many of us as Star Wars fans is Rian Johnson in contempt for supporters of George Lucas' vision, blah, blah, blah. He got it from his best friend before Rian deleted everything. Johnson was part of a strange, insular, and deeply cruel subculture that called itself Film Twitter, led by Devin Faraci, formerly of the Alamo Drafthouse, and a blog called Birth, Death, Movies, Film. Twitter was an army of drinking buddies who would get all wasted together and scream at people online all day who disagreed with their hot takes on movies. And
oh my god, hire me.
Yeah,
I'll make garbage movies.
And
I have a resilient. If this is what it takes to be a filmmaker with Disney, I have a resilient resume.
Yeah. And here's of course several posts that were
stellar.
That were there, which people were responding to Rian Johnson being a jerk in this guy's Twitter stream. So, what do you think about Twitter troll Rian Johnson being hired? Do you think that's a bad decision for a movie studio that wants him to be a tentpole guy for their cinema?
No, because if this is the precedent, I could be a Hollywood executive of some kind, working in the film industry. I guess again.
Yeah.
But a little bit more than doing personal assistant stuff.
What?
And
but
growing weed.
This attempt to get the woke mob after Rian Johnson isn't the only one, because people are going after George Lucas for problematic statements on women in Star Wars. Not only is George Lucas a fandom menace, but he's also sexist and or misogynist too, apparently. One of the primary arguments for inclusion of more women in Star Wars is that 50% of the world's population is women, therefore 50% of the characters in Star Wars should be women. One of the biggest supporters of the 50-50 mandate is Misandris Lucasfilm author Amy Ratcliffe.
Wait, hold on. How do they know that 50% of the galaxy's population are female? You don't know that.
I mean, there's space aliens, right? So
yeah.
They have like thousands of different genders, potentially.
Yeah. Or two where one is offset by another, or 3-to-1, or 4-to-1. Or maybe women are really rare. Maybe they still haven't figured out the child dying from childbirth thing out yet, like early humans have. I mean, they figured out space travel, but they couldn't figure out how to get a baby out of a mommy without it dying too.
So
I mean, they actually know what they haven't, because in Star Wars, didn't what's her name die from childbirth, giving birth to a
that was terrible. That was terrible.
So I mean, they still haven't figured that part out yet. That's probably why there's more men and women, more men than women in Star Wars movies. So there you go.
So there's a comment that these terrible people are going on about. In Starlog magazine, issue 127 from February 1988, on page 48, George Lucas stated the following about this controversy, which has been with us for longer than most people who are watching Star Wars movies right now have been alive. Starlog, we all noticed the lack of women in Star Wars in the Star Wars trilogy. Are you going to be bringing more women in for future Star Wars film? What of Princess Leia? When you're making a war film, how are you going to put women in it? Think of other war films. Think of Longest Day. Those films, well, it's your galaxy. I have to go with the rest of the world and still make it believable. I'm not sure how many women will be in the rest of the films. That's the kind of thing that plots dictate. What should Star Wars have been like if Han Solo had been a woman? I mean, undoubtedly the people who
that would not have worked. You could possibly raise the argument for Luke, but not.
But undoubtedly the people who noticed the lack of women in the Star Wars trilogy were media. Would also accuse George Lucas and Ahmed Best of creating a racist stereotype with Jar Jar Binks' character years later.
I think all of the things in the prequels were unintentionally racist.
There was a lot of unintentional racism.
Yeah.
And also people around George are saying, bruh. So Pablo Hidalgo, who allegedly works for Lucasfilms, made the following comments about George Lucas. Our continued and deliberate and debilitating obsession with our childhood passions was caveman masculine until the Dames ruined it. So, what do you think about George Lucas possibly being attacked by horrible, dishonest people on the internet
Well, I'm sure he can wipe those tears away with his piles of money
that he rolls around in,
that he rolls around in
and making
at the
movies
Skywalker Ranch.
and making movies that he just makes for himself because he has the money to just, you know what, I'm just going to spend like $1 million and just make a movie. And you know what? I'll show it to my friends at parties. So the next big thing is there's big news at Marvel where Kevin Feige has gotten a huge promotion. He's now the chief creative officer of Marvel Entertainment. So, Jim, do you understand the difference between Marvel Comics, Marvel Entertainment Group, and Marvel Studios?
I know they're under the same parent company.
Of course, we own everything.
Yeah, but they're somewhat independently ran. I'm sure there's some dictates that come up from higher up, but
technically, Marvel Studios is an independent company, but it's also technically a division of Marvel Entertainment Group, but they answer directly to Disney film boss Alan Horn. So the Marvel movies for Kevin Feige, and Kevin Feige was the guy who wanted to make Black Panther. He always wanted to put Captain Marvel into things, and a lot of these big push people are saying like, well, why is all this, SJW stuff coming in? Kevin Feige was wanting that in from the beginning. But so Kevin Feige wasn't able to make those things. Also, the chairman of the board of Marvel wanted to fire Robert Downey Jr. in Captain America Civil War. So Disney stepped in and said, like, no. Kevin's making us a ton of money, and you're making us a little bit of money. So we're going to let Kevin go play over there and do whatever he wants to make more money. Well, as the name of the game right now is Disney Plus, and Marvel's expected to turn out a bunch of stuff, Kevin has now been promoted to Chief Creative Officer for the Marvel Entertainment Group. So anybody who's making a Marvel TV show, a Marvel movie, a Marvel animated series, to a lesser extent a Marvel video game, they all answer directly to Kevin Feige and his creative vision. And he supervises all the creative executives in that section of the pipeline. So future Marvel TV shows are going to definitively be part of the movie universe and not be, it's part of the movie universe, but the movies aren't going to acknowledge it kind of thing. So what do you think about this big promotion for Mr. Kevin Feige?
I'm still not getting Disney Plus. Still not doing it.
Of course you are. You want to breathe air, don't you? I got a monopoly on all the air. You gotta get Disney Plus to breathe.
Unfortunately, the sad thing is I wouldn't put it past Disney to try.
Now,
we've copyrighted air.
Exactly. So the only two divisions of Marvel Comics that aren't reporting directly to Kevin Feige are comics publishing and licensing. So you know what the licensing division is responsible for.
Why not make good characters regardless of gender? What
We're
are
gonna
you?
get to that.
Wait, what are you, racist or something?
No, we haven't gotten that far yet. But you know what the licensing division does.
Yes.
So the licensing division says, hey, you know what? We want to have somebody write the novelization of Squirrel Girl. So they set up a license for a book publishing company to publish Squirrel Girl because right now they don't have the ability to publish books. Disney may be buying them, the company, to publish books, but that's longer term down the road. Also, if Bugatti said, hey, you know what? Spider-Man's pretty hot right now. We want to make an official Spider-Man Bugatti Spider.
Bukkake Spider?
Bugatti. The Italian motorcycle company?
No.
Well, there's an Italian motorcycle company that has a motorcycle called the Spider. It's called Bugatti is the name of the company.
Is that like a oh shit. What are the name of those scooters that all the rude boys had in the
No.
This is like a Vespa?
Yeah. No, this is like a legit muscle motorcycle.
Oh.
So let's say they wanted to make an official Spider-Man motorcycle to sell to their customers. That would also be licensing. And something they recently did, they let the New York Jets use the Hulk for promotion for I think it was like 3 or maybe it was all their home games one year, and they made more money off of that one contract than they had made off of Hulk comic books in 10 years. So that's what the licensing division does. And then there's the comic book division, which is still going to be run as it is right now in the status quo.
So Kevin Feige doesn't have control over the actual comics.
But ...
Asterisk.
So Kevin Feige has to streamline television, has to streamline animation. To a lesser extent, he has to streamline video games. Has to get them all going on the same palette that the movies are going on, and get them all into sexy money-making machines. That's a process that'll take 2 or 3 years, conservatively. But also, obviously, some of the stuff from comic books are going to feed into that. So while he's not the boss, he's like a co-direct report in some of those higher-level meetings. But eventually, they're going to say, look, these divisions are making a bunch of money. Yeah, licensing's making money. It doesn't need to be messed with, but the comic book division. So 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, potentially Kevin Feige could be bossing around the comic book division. So that could mean that our long nightmare of terrible comic books is over. But that's all speculation right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold
We just... Well, no. I mean, realistically, Disney's a sensible company. And if he gets the television Marvel and the animation Marvel and the video game Marvel making more money, why wouldn't Disney say, listen, Perlmutter, we're tired of your comic book division making less money? And also there's a rumor going around that Disney's going to be buying up another comic book company here soon. That has properties related to things they already own. So the rumor is Disney's going to buy that company to enhance their Fox asset and possibly to consolidate the management of that company and Marvel into an actual good structural management, reducing redundancy. And the contract for Marvel's headquarters in New York City runs out in a year. So while they may not report to Kevin Feige, if Marvel doesn't want to renew their New York license this year, they may move to the Burbank compound for Disney and be, within walking distance of Kevin Feige's office. And also, hey, we're moving to California. You are getting paid relocation. We have jobs for you, but we're not paying for relocation. Yeah, I know. You are kind of underwater in that mortgage in New Jersey, but we're sorry. I mean, hopefully you can find someone who can buy it good enough to relocate to California. Otherwise, we hope you find better opportunities elsewhere. So there could be some interesting things happening in the next couple of years in the funny books.
All right. Speaking of funny books.
Right. So we're changing the script a little bit on the music reviews. Normally,
I thought we were doing that after the comics.
We normally do it before.
Okay.
We normally use that as our segue into that. So normally Jim brings an album to me, but this time we changed the script. I was inspired by the terrible The Wall movie done by the Nostalgia Critic.
No. The Wall is a good movie.
Right, but the thing the Nostalgia Critic did was terrible.
Yes.
And I brought to Jim's attention a movie made out of a good album by Daft Punk. So everybody remembers Stronger, Faster, Harder, Better.
And One More Time.
One More Time. 2 of their biggest hits, they all came from one particular album. Well, what Daft Punk decided to do, so you know what? We're going to get one of the legends of Japanese animation, and we're just going to make an animated film out of our album.
Mm-hmm.
There's no words in it, but there doesn't need to be words. The characters' actions all do a good job of characterizing the drama, the tension, the plot, telling a story. And the music. By
the way, we should talk about the album. The album is Discovery.
The album is Discovery, yeah. Which is amazing.
Yep.
You should be nice to yourself and listen to this album.
It's very very repetitive, just like a lot of
Daft Punk.
But that's what you're there for. Is just to have a good time.
You're there to have a good time with Daft Punk music.
Yeah.
And
It's not supposed to be deep or interesting, or it's interesting, but it's not. It's not interesting in the same way like a Rush album is interesting, or a Swans album is interesting,
right.
or the Mars Volta
So
is interesting. It's more just like, oh, this is something I can shake my butt to while I'm cleaning the
yeah.
house, while I'm
So here's a
vacuuming.
question, Jim. Did the animated movie layer of frosting on top of it
Yeah.
make the album a richer experience for you?
So I only watched half of it because that's all I had time for. And not only that, but I'm just so movied out. I've seen so many movies this week. It's ridiculous. My brain's like, no more movies. No more movies. In fact, I've seen
Jim
4
watched
movies
2 double
today.
features. Jim watched 2 double features.
Yes. In
4
the last
movies
48
within 24
hours. In the last 40, let me pull up the list that I pulled up that I had. So this is not including all the horror films that I've been trying to catch up on because I'm so far behind on horror. Haven't seen a lot of the classics, so I've been catching up on those. So yesterday I saw Joker again, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, El Camino, Zombieland, Zombieland 2, and now Interstellar 5555. And I was just like, I got halfway through it. I'm just like, I'm moved out. Even though the music's great, I'm moved out.
So this is a movie about some space aliens who are in a hot, sexy space alien rock and roll band who get kidnapped by other space aliens to come produce generic corporate rock and roll for the people of Earth. And it's all about their struggling to find themselves again and find their way back home. It's a really great movie experience. And this was written with the intention to support the album as a giant hour and some change long music video.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you think about the animation?
It's Japanese, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's anime. It definitely has some anime kind of overtones sometimes, but not really.
This is done by one of the classical anime artists. He did some of the early Gundam stuff and the Macross stuff. So this was very early and very foundational anime that rolled over in the United States. Mm-hmm. It's not what we associate with anime today, but if you watch anime in the United States and Europe, I'm guessing because the Daft Punk guys are from France, in the 70s and 80s, this guy's anime style would be one of the major influential styles you would see.
Yeah, but I'm saying it doesn't look... it's probably something in the same lines of like something like Spirited Away. It's not in the same vein as something like, I don't know, just think of any Moe.
Moe.
Yeah, it's definitely not like that.
Right, but Moe anime is a whole different animal.
Yeah.
So, strongly recommend you can watch this whole movie. It's on YouTube. It's a great movie.
Yep.
Strongly recommend that.
Yep. I want to get around to watching the other half soon. I'm just moved out.
Yeah. I feel you. I totally feel you. So we got 3 comic book reviews to further give Jim some cushioning in his brain before we get to the movies. And we have the Netflix TV show review, which is also based on a comic book. So first I want to talk about Superman Black Label. So this is Frank Miller's definitive take on Superman. And the Joker movie is kind of similar. It's a Black Label take on the Joker, which is a new sort of branding thing that DC is doing / Warner. So, that was like the first one. The first one was all about his growing up in Kansas, then going off to join the military. Second one was about him becoming and then being forced out of the Navy SEALs, and then becoming a superhero for mermaid people in Atlantis. And the last one is about him going to Metropolis and starting himself as being the Superman that everybody knows and loves. So now that we've seen all 3 of these books together, this shouldn't have been separated into 3 books. It's separated into 3 books for making profit and for hyping up the eventual trade paperback sales, but these 3 books aren't as complete as a single story as they are as one single book. So his being in the military and his being kind of wild and disruptive and disorderly, but also respectful and authoritarian in appropriate ways, was all designed to set up for the plot in this 3rd book. So it was kind of hanging there and didn't really have a full story resolution in the first book because it wasn't that point. It was supposed to build into the second book and then build into the third book. So that's a major negative I have for this, is whenever I read individual comics that are being produced for a trade, I at least want each individual comic to be a complete story. The third book's plot is fairly basic. Lois Lane's in danger. He saves Lois, goes to the big city, learns to be a reporter, goes to work for the Daily Planet, all the stuff that you know and love. Eventually runs afoul of Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor tries to manipulate him. Then he teams up with Batman and Wonder Woman to fight Lex Luthor. And then Lex Luthor reveals, you're not the lone Kryptonian. So this whole journey for him has all been about him trying to be the hero for the people of Earth, but then he finds out his people still live out there somewhere and they're being held by another alien. So I'm not really sure why they ended
So does the
it.
Justice League go into the halls of justice?
Not in this
Oh.
series of books.
Oh.
They have both disowned and owned the Hall of Justice in various continuities in DC Comics. So yeah, this is interesting. I like the total of all three less because it wasn't well put together. Frank Miller's a living legend, and nobody told him, hey, Frank, maybe you should not break all the rules here, or at least break rules in a smarter way. The John Romita Jr. artwork is not his best. He was rushed, and he was doing other things, and he was not putting his best work into this. And I think DC Comics really should have said, hey, John, you're a living legend also, but if you can't do the work, we can get somebody else in here to do it, who can do it to Frank's specifications. It's still a very interesting experiment because Frank Miller viewed Superman in the 70s and 80s as the Reagan is a fascist figure. But this is a Superman that shows elements of America that he respects, and this is a Superman who's a personification of America, but so also is the Batman in this story and the Wonder Woman. There's sort of a holy trinity of America, but as superheroes. So it's a good story. It's kind of all over the place. And Frank needed an editor who could make him color inside the lines at least a little bit. But this was a interesting experiment, and I do hope DC does more experiments like this in the future. So the next comic book up on the batting order is Lowlife.
Oh.
So I would give this guy a shout out on Twitter because he do it, but he only has Facebook. So Lowlife it's Mad Max, but Mad Max and Conan the Barbarian. So there's all the fantasy world elements and tropes. There's a Mad Max-like figure. He's got to kidnap an elf so she can lead him to stuff. It's a fairly basic story, but the art is really what kind of stands out a little bit in places. There are places where the digital background art doesn't really serve the actual drawn character art. The backgrounds can be a little bit flat, but it's very good at trying to evoke that Mad Max exploitation style of art. So that's kind of good, but the backgrounds are kind of flat. I like its choice of color. It sets the tone well. And it has brighter colors in when there's actual action. And he's got his crowdfunding finished, I believe, for the second book. But this one didn't wow me enough to pick up the second book. So now we're going to talk about Ethan Van Sciver's Cyberfrog Bloodhoney. So Ethan Van Sciver is like one of the superstars of the whole Comicsgate crowdfunding comics movement. We've both talked with him on Twitter. Ethan's a pretty cool guy.
He's very, as he puts it, he's very smart, intelligent, and humble.
Yes. So a lot of people knocked this book for many reasons. The biggest one being it was a year late being delivered. The first people who got the book got it like a year after they ordered it. Now, in the world of crowdfunding comics, that's not super late, but that's concerningly late. It's at least within the sphere of lateness that you actually have a chance of getting your book. But there are late comics that are like 5 years, 6 years plus late. You're never getting your product at that point.
No.
After
Or
this,
it could be worse. It could be like Peter Joseph crowdfunding for his Zeitgeist 4, which then turned into later Inner Reflections. And that was slated for 2014.
Yeah.
It keeps pushing that date back. It's not out yet.
So there were several complaints that came out about the comic, and most of them were unfair. There were comments about the quality of the paper. It was barely noticeable in my copy. There's like a little wrinkling, which does happen when you have very color intensive comics, and like there are mainstream comics I've seen that in. So people were just shitting on Ethan to shit on Ethan in the book, because he was late, because he was front and center, the face guy, since your boy Zach, aka Richard C. Meyer, left Twitter to just focus on making his comic book and making his YouTube channel. So Cyberfrog is very much the Eastman and Laird comic book Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with just a little bit of the cartoon Ninja Turtle in like the tone and the texture of the story. And this is Ethan's baby. This is what he started his comic book career with. So he's in the new phase of his career, so he wants his baby boy, his froggy little boy, to be here to start his new journey.
So this is Clerks 2.
This is kind of his Clerks 2.
Okay.
That is a great analogy. This is Ethan Van Sciver's Clerks 2. So structurally, the structure is not what I would consider personally good, but it's not as bad as other people who've made negative reviews have said it is. So story structure, there's a lot of different things about story structure, and there's a lot of different things about story structure in a comic. You got a cybernetic frog in a story. So what would you do if you were writing a story about a cybernetic frog with a giant cybernetic salamander brother? What would they be doing in your story that's going to be in a comic book, Jim?
I don't read comics.
No, I'm asking you this question though, just using your basic thinking brain. What would you do with those characters if you're telling a story about them?
Fight a lizard?
Well, they're going to fight
robot
things.
fries. Eat robot flies.
Well, they're going to fight. They're going to fight stuff, right? They're going to be in action. There's a lot less action than you expect in this comic, which is one of the big problems. There's a lot more exposition because this was a comic book Ethan made in the 90s that sold okay for an independent comic, but not super great. Because again, it was an independent comic he was doing on a small budget. He couldn't really sell it super. So,
well, I'm sure it got him some attention. I mean, he ended up doing the
he did Green Lantern, he did X-Men, he did some stuff.
Yeah, he also did all the fake covers for all the fake comics and Mallrats, the Mallrats intro.
He also was the illustrator for Jordan B. Peterson's 12 Books of Virtues. So it got him started in his career, but a lot of the book was devoted to telling the lore and mythology of the different aliens and stuff, and then giving you a vague couple of pages like, so here's stuff that happened to Cyberfrog in his existence before we get to this actual story. And here's Cyberfrog meeting all the other characters that are the key characters in his actual story that we're going to tell you later. And that's about a third of the book. And that's not what I would consider optimal. So the story is about a cybernetic frog that's fighting robot alien wasp people. Do you really need to tell a lot to sell somebody on that story, Jim? I mean, do you just need a cyborg frog fighting alien bugs to save the world?
Yeah.
You don't really need a lot to explain that story. So you need to get into frog fighting the alien bugs to save the world, and then tell the story you want to tell within that framework. So the second third is all about the alien invasion. But it's not even about the alien invasion until the halfway mark. So basically, it takes half the book to get really into what the book's about. There's a weird little sequence where they use the Bill Clinton "I did not have sex with that woman" Miss Lewinsky speech as a time marker to mark the point in which the space aliens invade the planet. And there's so many things going on in that sequence where the frog and the lizard are watching Bill Clinton's speech where some of the text boxes actually get a little confusing. So then they go to fight the aliens, and then the aliens overrun Earth. And then Cyberfrog metaphorically dies. He gets severely injured, falls in the water, regenerates, but it's years later. World's been invaded and changed, and he has to find his friends to try to make everything right. And that's the end of the book. So really, the story doesn't get started until 50 to 60% of the way into the book. Now, Ethan has said that this pays off in the second book or the third book in this series, but I think he could have told the story more efficiently with a simpler structure. We don't need to know specifically about the alien that gave the frog and the salamander their superpowers. We're going to be talking about the reboot soon. I have a TV show to talk about. Then we're going to talk about Zombieland. Then we're going to be getting into...
We're going to get into our zombie block.
Yeah, we're going to get to the block of zombies. Zombieland is one zombie. El Camino is another zombie. And then the reboot.
Yeah,
So, Ethan, I don't think that was a good decision, but he sold a lot of comic books, made a lot of money. We'll see how the next comic book he sells does. We'll see if some of the, Twitter drama that he's used and YouTube drama that he's used to promote himself helps him sell the next book. I hope it does, because I like Ethan as a person. I hope it does. So, a TV show on Netflix that was based off of an independent comic book is next on the bat. It's called Raising Dion. So it's all about a single mother raising a boy who may have autism, or he may just be kind of slowish, and he has superpowers because his dad got superpowers and gave it to him. It's kind of a TV show that doesn't really get to its point either. It kind of meanders around. So he goes to his school. He gets in a fight with a white kid. The white principal punishes him. There's a lot of race stuff there, but it takes you out of the story. And like, you're like, okay, I understand that's an actual problem in schools, but what does that actually do to your story? And that may have been in the comic book. Comic book wasn't particularly interesting, and this wasn't really interesting as a heroic narrative. The whole story comes down to there was a big event in Iceland. Gave a whole bunch of people superpowers. Two of them being the main character's father and his best friend, who was his basically, friend, uncle, foster father kind of figure. But he totally has the hot for the kid's mom. Totally wants her. Because, his best friend died, so he should get his best friend's wife. That's just how that works. That's simple science. So, of course, he's the villain. That's kind of lazy, and I think that's a lazy thing that's in the comic book. And it's a villain that can't be defeated, so another kid of one of the people who is at the accident inherits the powers. The kid just has weird telekinesis powers. He can also teleport. And he can heal the illness that was caused by the same event that caused everybody to get superpowers. It was really a movie about a black single mother, a TV series about a black single mother trying to make it in the world with her special needs son, who went to a school and had a whole bunch of special needs friends. Like, there was a girl who had some sort of like progeria looking disorder, who was in a wheelchair, who was in his school. And it's like, and we're going to get into that in a bit. Don't you worry about that. But it's like, you're just shoehorning in diversity in a way that really distracts from watching your movie or your TV show. I'm also going to say that about a movie a little or two.
But that's in a different vein, to be fair.
We'll get into more depth in that, because at least there's more depth in that than there is in this TV show.
Oh.
This TV show did not have a whole lot of depth. It was kind of shallow. So you want to get to El Camino first, or you want to do Zombieland?
No, we have to start the zombie block with an actual zombie movie.
All right. So I didn't get to see Zombieland yet because I had a choice in movies to see on Thursday, and I saw Jay and Silent Bob reboot. I probably would have been happier seeing this movie.
Yeah, you would have. Okay, so there's been a huge kind of push to reintroduce a lot of old franchises because Hollywood's out of ideas, and they've rebooted everything that they can reboot. So now they're going back like, okay, what did we do 10 years ago?
Actually, it's actually deeper than that. If you don't use a franchise in like 25 years, there are various legal shenanigans the original creators can do to like seize rights, and then you get split rights issues, and then you get like a whole mess like what happened with Child's Play, or what's in the process of happening with like Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So studios want to keep reintroducing things.
That's why we got that's why we got the Amazing Spider-Man almost right after Spider-Man 3.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's why you also got that was also another reason why is because they were using the font for the PlayStation.
Exactly.
So they needed to keep their rights on the font.
Exactly.
Anyways, so Zombieland picks up where we doesn't pick up where we left off. It picks up 10 years after the events in Zombieland, which Zombieland happened in 2009. So we're exactly 10 years later. They moved into Obama's White House because remember, Trump never became president. The zombie apocalypse happened under Obama. And they're all living at the White House, living very comfortably. It shows them getting into the house and living there. They've been living there for a while. Okay, so now I gotta remember all the city names. So Columbus has been dating Wichita for about 10 years now, and he pops the question, and she just basically leaves a crappy note that even mentions the fact that she's really bad at writing notes, and picks up and left with Little Rock and left town because she got spooked by getting popped the question, and the ring that was offered was the Hope Diamond. Because why not? You have the Hope Diamond. You're at the White House. Yeah.
You have access to the Hope Diamond. Absolutely. Although the Hope Diamond was cursed, so he probably should have thought of that and went with another diamond from that museum.
Yeah. So she got spooked and left with Little Rock, and they left, and she comes back a little bit later. But they decided, a month after the breakup, he's still, hung up about her and sad that she's gone. And so they said, hey, you know what? Let's take your mind off of this. You're still hung up a month later. Let's go shopping. So they go to the mall, and, they're just getting supplies and stuff. And they run across a girl called Madison, who was a really dumb blonde valley girl. By the way, was Madison, Wisconsin. Who figured out how to survive the apocalypse by hiding in the Pinkberry freezer, the yogurt company. So they go there, like they meet up with her.
That's not a bad strategy.
No, it was a really good strategy. But they meet in the Yankee Candle because Zombieland stinks. You can imagine, there's just death all around you, and decomposing bodies all around you. Everything's going to smell terrible. So he just spends a lot of time in the Yankee Candle section anytime he can because it smells good in there. Where he meets the girl, and they hit it off. Wichita comes back and says, "Hey, Little Rock ran off with some hippie, and of course the hippie's name is Berkeley, which
of course he's Berkeley.
Yeah, because he's from Berkeley." In case you forgot about Zombieland, everybody's named after the places where they're from. They don't go by their actual names. So Berkeley, is a hippie who is a pacifist and doesn't believe in killing the zombies. He just wants to go to this place called Babylon, where there's no guns, and everybody just lives in a giant hippie commune and plays hacky sack and plays, and writes music all day, where there's no guns allowed and also no group sex allowed. But the guy enforcing the group sex rule wants to have have group sex, which is kind of funny. But anyways, so they're trying to track down Little Rock before they fuck her up, with their pacifism, because Tallahassee's not having any of the pacifism at all. He's having a little bit of empty nest syndrome on top of that because he's kind of been a father figure to her. And, he's upset by her choice in dating. And the guy is a real douche. Berkeley is a complete douche. He passes off Bob Dylan songs as if he's written them. Like, oh, yeah, I totally wrote that one. Let me play another song that I wrote. And he started playing another Bob Dylan tune. Real douchey guy. And so they start heading over there and they show Wichita and Little Rock steals the car that Tallahassee had been building this whole entire time. And then Little Rock steals the car with Madison to go out. And so she's kind of like, wow, isn't that ironic? And so now they're on a quest to chase her down. They try to go to Graceland because that was their first stop before they went to Babylon, and Graceland is in ruins, but a little offshoot hotel is still there. The little motel that's kind of Elvis themed as well, which is ran by Rosie O'Dawson playing Nevada, who she doesn't reveal the city that she's from until later in the movie, which I won't spoil.
Okay.
But she's like, Nevada's as close as you're going to get to an actual location where I'm from. And they meet up with some of her cohorts, which are almost carbon copies of Tallahassee and Columbus.
Yeah. So wait. Was she from Area 51?
No.
Okay.
No, I won't. That's no. I'll give that part away. No, not from that part. And so they end up going to the commune, and they have to trade in their guns. Little Rock and Berkeley do. And and on their way there, they were kind of laying down a scent and making a big ruckus and stuff, which let in a bunch of other zombies. Now, in about 10 years, they figured out there's different types of zombies. You have like the Homer zombie. The Homer zombie is like a really stupid zombie. They're not really much of a threat. They're easily distracted. They're easily killable, and you don't have to worry about them. They're just dumb, fat, and like Homer. And they're more entertainment than they are like a threat. Then you have the ninja zombie, which they're quiet, and usually the first thing you hear from them is the sound of your own scream. You have the Hawking, which are the really brilliant ones, and now they've kind of figured out like how to be kind of smart to get through their prey. They're able to open doors and undo locks and turn handles and sort of things like that, and they're able to outsmart you. Ish, not really brilliant, but smart enough to get past normal things that buried them. But now there's this new one, which they're calling the T800s, which takes a really long time to kill. They're really hard to kill, and once they lock onto you, they're dead set on getting you. You can shoot them multiple times in the head and they're still going to survive. It really takes a really long time to get them. But on their way there, they start attracting all of the T-800s to Babylon, which is completely unarmed. And so they have to go and save the day. This one is 100%. This is twice as good as Zombieland. Did you like Zombieland?
I enjoyed Zombieland.
All right, and you're going to like this movie twice as much. This movie does everything that movie does, only better. It's even more funnier. They brought back the rules, and not only did we get the rules, we also get commandments as well.
What are commandments?
So Flagstaff, which is a carbon copy of Columbus, it's the other one. He doesn't have rules. He has commandments, and they're almost identical to his rules, just in different orders and different wording. And some of the ones he's like, oh, I actually like that wording better than my rule. And then he also has an extra rule saying like believe in teamwork. So yeah, there's that. And we also get. I'm just gonna say we get more Bill Murray. Without getting into spoilers, we get more Bill Murray. So if you liked Bill Murray in the original one, you're going to get something like a Bill Murray thing in this one as well. No spoilers.
All right.
And stick around because there's stuff at the end that's even better. That's great.
I know.
So yeah, I was really surprised. Like I was hoping that it wasn't going to be bad, but they took a good property and improved upon it. And not that there was much to improve on the first one. I was really, really pleasantly surprised about how good that movie was. It's probably going to go in my best comedy this year. Yeah.
So, El Camino. So, first of all, full disclosure, I didn't particularly care for Breaking Bad. I became aware of it because it was in pop culture, but
Really?
I wasn't a fan.
Really? Did you watch the whole thing, or
No,
where did you stop?
like 4 or 5 episodes in.
That's why.
Like every so often, I would dip my toe back in when like people were saying, "Well, this interesting thing or that interesting thing happened," and I'd watch maybe like an episode here, an episode of there.
Yeah. Once you get over the hump of the first season, it gets really
Well,
good.
my problem is the whole concept of Walter White, aka Heisenberg, never worked for me because
it ends up
the
working.
show wanted you to believe he was a terrible person, but they also wanted you to think at first he was a good person who turned terrible, so you could later realize he was terrible all along. But I was one of those people who realized he was terrible all along from the beginning.
Yeah, that was the point. No, that was the point. He was always bad.
Right, but the show wanted you to think in the beginning, no, he's not really bad, but also set up the groundwork for you to realize, oh yeah, he is bad.
Yeah.
So, what's your relationship with Breaking Bad?
It still is my favorite television show. It's one of the ones that I've gone back and watched multiple times all the way through. So for this to come out, I was like, when I first heard they were making a Breaking Bad movie, I was like, no, don't do this. Stop. Don't. Because the whole kind of trajectory everybody was speculating on is Walter White didn't really die. He's still alive, and we're going to get more of his story. But I didn't want that.
I would have liked more Walter White in this, but at the same point in time, I also respect that it's like we're just cleaning up a few leftover tidbits.
Yeah.
From the show.
Because the show was about Walter White, but everybody was kind of like, but what about Jesse? Like, what happened with Jesse?
So that's what this movie is.
Yeah, like, and his basically recovery from being a slave, a meth slave, and all the things that, some of the things that happened while he was a meth slave.
And also, he really just kind of became a moon in the orbit of Walter White.
Mm-hmm.
And he got pulled along for the ride. He didn't really want to go this deep into darkness. And as I watched this, I said, it's good that we get to see this guy have his redemption and recovery story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would have liked there to have been more, like, less predictable, less formulaic. But at the same point in time, I appreciate seeing this character having his loose ends tied off and going off to no longer be a part of that world of darkness and find something new in his life.
Yeah, so this is really like the bow on the present that we got that was Breaking Bad.
Yeah, so like I can appreciate it as a bow, even though I didn't appreciate the present. I can say this is a really nice bow. Oh, this is a box of socks.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Today I learned you have terrible opinions about Breaking Bad, but you're also going to have even more terrible opinions that we're going to disagree on.
My problem with Breaking Bad fundamentally is the gimmick for the main character didn't work for me because I saw through the gimmick from the main character right away. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he got to be reborn in the Snow Vault. So he escapes his darkness and he gets to become a recovered person. That was the whole point.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Again, this is also bringing back a zombie franchise, just like the previous one. Yeah.
So,
which I'm fine with. I'm fine with that. Like, I'm fine with Double Tap, and I'm fine with this movie. This movie was great.
So now, what we're all been waiting for. I normally don't do homework for movies, but Jim made me want to do homework for this movie. He hyped me up and I think that may have been the mistake.
No, say I hyped you up expecting this to be terrible. You knew that it was going to be terrible. I pitched this idea to you saying, "Hey, this is probably going to be really bad."
Yes, but like the process of getting here made me think, hey, maybe Kevin Smith's made a turnaround and become less of a hack. I was incorrect in that assumption.
Mm-hmm.
That's the wrong footing I got off on.
So I'll let you play this out because we're gonna get into some banter because we have very different opinions about this movie.
Yeah. So
not extremely different, but different enough.
So the first thing I'm going to say is, Jim, you're going to want to put the spoiler warning out at some point in time here real soon because
this is a Jay and Silent Bob movie. It doesn't really matter about spoilers.
Doesn't really matter? Okay.
No,
so if you're okay with going balls deep into spoilers.
I figure since the Roadshow has been out now, if you're interested in seeing this movie, you went and saw it. There's not a large...
No, the Roadshow's...
No, not the Roadshow, but the Phantom event.
Yeah. So, like, if you want to see this, they do have a Roadshow. So, you know, if you can get a ticket, you know, great. This is going to be a limited run movie. This is going to be a limited run movie.
How about this? Just in case people want to hear the spoiler stuff, we'll save that. But let's just talk about what we thought about the movie first. And then we can get into like what it's about. Because it's going to be kind of hard to talk about this without spoilers. Because
it's not about the crust. It's all about the meat.
Okay.
And you have to get into the meat. So first, I respect that Kevin Smith is basically pulling an Adam Sandler at this point in his film career. But unlike Adam Sandler, he's not mad. You know how Adam Sandler was making really shitty movies, and you could just see he was seething and angry, but like he was like in his eye, you could see, look, I'm making this movie, so I'm letting 8 of my friends have jobs who can't get jobs anymore because they were all burned out in their career. And Kevin James is helping me out, and he kind of sort of has a career now because of me. So it's like that, but Kevin Smith's happy to do it. He's not, you know, in a negative place. Like, there's this crowdfunding group that's producing movies. They've produced a few movies here and there, so he's been like one of their big, like, signature advertising guys. So that's a positive element I gotta say about this, is like, this is like, he's gonna make some money off of this, not a whole lot, but enough to kickstart his next project.
Yeah.
So,
which I'm much more hopeful for.
Yeah. So number one, bully for him on being good about that. The production company that did the Power Rangers came in. Saban produced this movie, which was a gag in the movie as well. Virtually everything about the making of this movie is a gag in the movie. Yeah. So this movie, in part, while technically Jim is correct, Clerks 2 was Jason Mewes' comeback movie, but that was also a couple of years back.
Yeah.
This is the movie that Jason really wanted to do once he got clean and sober again.
Yeah.
And Kevin really didn't want to go back to this well until after he had his heart attack and he had some inspiration. So what bothered me about this movie is, number one, if it's the movie about him and his transformation into the man he is now, the movie didn't actually tell that story effectively. It did a bunch of gags and a bunch of gimmicks, but it also didn't do the gags and gimmicks really effectively. Now, there are a few that Jim pointed out to me before the show where there's like some super duper inside Iggy, you have to be a super fan to catch it kind of bits.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of them I appreciate a little bit more now that Jim mentioned those to me. But his daughter, Harlequin, she was in Yoga Hosers and was terrible, but now I can at least see after watching this movie, that's because Yoga Hosers was really bad.
Yeah. Like she worked with what she was given, and what she was given was trash. Yeah. And so like she tried to put a couple of bows and pretty stickers on the trash to make it a little bit more presentable, but it didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't really work out.
Yeah.
Now, for this movie, for me, this is in my worst 10 movies of the year. But as time's going on, it's moving down the worst movies list. It's one of those things, like, intensely, I had a very strong reaction to it when I left the theater, but it's kind of softened a little bit as it's been digesting in my head. Still not a good movie. Still one of my worst movies of the year, but it's not like it's realistically not in the bottom 5 at this point, thinking a little bit more soberly about it.
For me,
So,
sorry.
So the movie's about relationships between fathers and daughters. It's another major theme of the movie. So you get good moments with Jason Mewes and Harlequin Smith, but there's not enough of them to really do something consistent with that theme. Jason Mewes' actual daughter's in the movie. She has a really good scene with Ben Affleck, which is one of the good scenes in the movie, even though I don't like it. It's good because it does what the movie needs done. The movie wouldn't work without it, but it's all too on the nose for me. The whole little spiel from Ben Affleck is totally on the nose for the whole thing. And there's just a lot of, hey, you remember this, you remember this, you remember this. And the movie's all about like stepping between those things without there being really good segues between any of them. So like there's a lot more gags than there were in Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. So there's not really a time to develop a cogent story that makes you really care about what's going on. I literally almost left several times, and the major thing that kept me from leaving is I actually paid for this movie as opposed to just seeing it on the A-list. Like if I just saw this on my A-list app, I probably would have left because I wouldn't have an actual cash investment in this movie. But I had a cash investment in this movie, and I stayed. So the movie says it's about making fun of reboots and remakes, but it's really not.
It's also saying, it's also celebrating them as well.
It's more than just celebrating them. It's saying like, this is a good thing. You should embrace this. And that's why
because your kids like it.
Even though your kids don't. Because if you look at the actual hard numbers on these things, the kids don't really like it. It's still the same adults who are going, just less of them. And the monies that are different has to do with like ticket prices and things. And that's why so many of these reboots and remakes are failing, is because it's not compelling to the kids today. But the people like Kevin Smith who are making these soulless cash grabs think the kids like it. They think the kids like it because they like it and they're still hip. But does Kevin Smith look hip in this picture? Did he ever really look hip when he was dressed up as Silent Bob? No. But yeah, so it's a thing that says, hey, hey, fellow kids, I hate reboots and remakes, but aren't they really great if you just think about it a certain way that we want you to think about it in? So that's what I didn't like, is I wanted it to satirize remakes and reboots. I don't mind if it comes around to a schmaltzy place where it says, yeah, but your kids enjoy it. And while it's not necessarily something that's your cup of tea, it's something you can build a bond and a connection with your kid with. That's a meaningful thing that will establish your family relationship. It didn't really do the work to get to that payoff. This is a very lazy film and a very lazy script. Another element is it talks about the forced diversity that's in modern cinema, and it does it in a lazy way. In fact, it does it in a more lazy than the films it's making fun of. So the only way that works as a satirical point is if they're saying, yeah, I'm being retarded on purpose. And I don't think that's what the movie was trying to do, because they were talking about these badly written characters in such an earnest, warm way, and none of their characterization matters. And I'm going to get into that more when we get to the point where we're going to go balls deep into the spoilers.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with a lot of the points. I mean, I did think the humor worked a little bit more than it worked on you. But then again,
you were more into Kevin Smith movies than I was.
Like, basically, my high school years were just like watching Kevin Smith movies over and over again with my friends, because we've just always been obsessed with Kevin Smith films, even when they haven't been very good.
And I mean, the reason,
except for Jersey Girl, like, we could not get through Jersey Girl. Sorry,
but the reason guys of our age really got into Kevin Smith movies is we said, "Hey, Kevin Smith's kind of like us. We could do this. We could totally make this kind of movie."
But yeah, Kevin Smith's not that person anymore, because none of us went vegan and had a heart attack.
No.
But so, yeah. However,
I'm just saying, if I have to have the choice between going vegan or attack, I'd be okay with a heart attack so long as I don't die.
Um, I enjoyed it. However, I did feel like Joker in the movie theater because I was laughing on all the offbeats, which were jokes referencing things that were really inside baseball that no one else in the theater got because they weren't into it as deep.
Something else I didn't mention that's not a spoiler. This bugged me more than Clerks 2 did, being a digital production. Like, when the film opened and it was clearly digital, it like really bugged me because we'd watched so many of his older film
that were shot on film, and he stuck to film even though everything was going digital.
Yeah, so I think he went digital for money reasons in this one, but that bugged the heck out of me watching this movie. That things were in digital.
Yeah,
like
Clerks 3 needs to be. Clerks 3 needs to be on film again.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, I was laughing on all the offbeat stuff because there was and a lot of the main jokes. I was kind of like, I either laughed very little or some. There was a couple things here and there, not a lot, but there was a couple things here and there where I was like, nah, nothing cringe-inducing. But there was. I remember there was one scene, I can't remember it, where I was just kind of like, this doesn't work. Don't do this. It wasn't cringe level, but it was kind of walking that line. But everything else I thought was pretty much okay. And again, one example of it's kind of the things we're talking about. This is not spoilers. This is early on in the movie. Is that Jay and Silent Bob lost the intellectual property to their own names, so they could no longer go around and call themselves Jay and Silent Bob. And it was because they were tricked into signing a contract saying that that they forfeit their rights to their names in exchange for them getting their defense from this Hollywood lawyer that was going to save them from the criminal charges that were pending on them. And the person who was defending them was James St. James from Zack and Miri Make a Porno. Now, Kevin Smith has talked about this a lot, that he doesn't have the rights to Zack and Miri Makes a Porno. He can't make a sequel to it. He can't reference any of the characters in any of the movies, and he always regrets that aspect of doing that movie. So James St. James being there, but not being called James St. James because there was an intellectual property dispute. So he just kept referring to himself as his Grindr handle, which was, what was it? Dick Wolfer. Dick Wolfer. Look me up on Grindr.
They actually repeated it twice, which is one of the things I said, I better look that up before the show, see what that was referencing, because it was clearly a reference because they did it twice.
Yeah, and it was again trying to remind you that the fact that they lost the rights to their names and they couldn't be called Jay and Silent Bob was directly talking about that particular character who he didn't have the intellectual rights to, and they couldn't call him James St. James. They could have him in the movie, but they couldn't reference him as James St. James, so they called him Dick Wolfer.
That was running gag for more of the movie, and they really were lazy about doing the running gag. So when they had the airport sequence, wouldn't it have been funny if they actually showed their actual ID and we actually got to hear Jay and Silent Bob's actual name for the first time?
Well, that was their names.
Well, no, the actual names, the full government names.
Well, that was their names.
No, they have actual government names.
No, they don't. They may have had them in Clerks, but not from then on.
In Clerks, the animated series, they had them also. So that would have been funny. So Jay could have said his name, and Silent Bob would have handed his thing over, and they said, "What? That's your name? That's the dumbest name ever." Then Jay would have a name, and his name would be even stupider. That would have been a good way to take that gag, make it funny, make it pay off.
Yeah. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of build up and payoff stuff here. It was all just one-off jokes. But this movie is not for people who you just can't grab someone off the street and say, "Hey, come watch this movie. It'll be funny." and they had no experience with Kevin Smith films before. Maybe if they watched Clerks or something, but if unless they're really in the View Askew universe, this movie is going to be nothing to you. It's going to be confusing to you at times. There's not going to be a lot of things that are going to be very interesting or funny. You have to be in the View Askew universe to really to even understand what's going on, and to really truly appreciate it. You have to be deep into it. So I'm very much into it. You're kind of half in the bag with Kevin Smith, so it's not going to really work for you.
But the thing is, I
completely agree with a lot of the criticism that this movie is getting, including from you. I don't necessarily agree with all of the humor. However, I still enjoyed it. I still had a great time. If you're really into Kevin Smith movies, this is a must watch. However, this is the bottom of the list when it comes to the View Askew universe movies. It's not Kevin Smith's worst movie. Yoga Hosers, Jersey Girl, those two are definitely under this, or topping it. Topping it as being the worst.
Jersey Girl to see if I liked it less than this.
It's
all I remember is it was the whole Jennifer Lopez Ben Affleck thing.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it since.
Well, it was Liv Tyler that was in the movie, but yeah, it's kind of
right. But it was during that whole thing. Yeah.
So yeah, it's no Yoga Hosers, but then again, it's also no Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, but it's in the same. It's well, I wouldn't say that. It is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, just low energy.
It's low energy. It's very low energy.
I still recommend it and with the caveat, you have to be interested in Kevin Smith movies. You have to really appreciate them, all of them. Well, not all of them, all the ones in the View Askew universe. If you don't like Zack and Miri Make a Porno, if you don't like Yoga Hosers or Tusk, you'll be fine. But you have to be really involved in those movies for you to really truly appreciate this movie. I don't think it's him coming. It's not a coming. What is it? Coming to return to form. It's definitely not return to form. But it's getting there. If you're comparing this from like Yoga Hosers, this is a vast improvement. And I'm pretty sure even you would agree if you could remember Yoga Hosers.
My brain's trying to protect me so I don't remember it.
Yeah, it's keeping you from being sane. It's kind of like how we have a hard time remembering what happened in the Nostalgic Critic Wall review.
Exactly.
Your brain's saying, no. We need to preserve sanity. We can't let you remember all of this in detail. Yeah.
So, do you have anything else you want to say before we have to go balls deep?
This is not going to make my worst or best movie of the year by any stretch of the imagination. It's very kind of middle of the road for me. There was lots of things I liked about it. There was lots of things that I thought were just kind of fell flat. I agree. The highlight of the movie was Ben Affleck. It was kind of unfortunate that they didn't utilize Loki even more in this, because I thought when Loki showed up, I thought that would have been a good change for things. Hold on, it's not spoilers.
Let's use that as our transition.
Okay, so spoilers.
So one of my favorite things that was in there was Loki was here. Matt Damon showed up. Matt Damon was one of the cameos that he was clearly having a good time being back in this whole thing. So he basically referenced, "Hey, Dogma? Did you ever wonder what happened to Loki at the end of Dogma?" And he used it to do a very long string of puns about the Bourne Identity movies
and Loki from the Marvel movies.
Yeah, and to make fun of Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah,
I appreciated that. I thought that was fun. I thought that you could have started the movie with that, and then had him say, "Well, let me tell you about my buddy Jay and Bob. I mean, they did kind of help me out, so I should help them out." That would have been an interesting introductory choice for the movie, to have him pop in periodically as a narrator.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's what I mean by this movie is very lazy Kevin Smith. This is like, if he thought about it.
Not very lazy, but lazy.
I mean, he's been lazier, but
lazy.
He's not
very lazy as Yoga Hosers. This is just regular lazy.
Well, no, Yoga Hosers was just like him, completely checking out. That's beyond me. He's just gone. So, that would have been a good structure of the movie. So the opening sequence of the movie. Jay and Silent Bob have a chicken and marijuana joint where they're having a legal dispensary.
Which you didn't get the pun on that one. That was a Breaking Bad
I
reference.
missed the fact it was a Breaking Bad reference. And in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, that is a Breaking Bad reference. I just thought they were making fun of sucking cock.
Well, they are too.
Yeah.
It's like we have a choice between having a gay joke and a Breaking Bad reference. Which one do we choose? ¿Por qué no las dos?
But like the whole idea of pot's basically legal in much of the country, so why aren't Jay and Silent Bob in on the legal pot game?
Well, they said during their trial.
Well, I mean,
it's illegal, but they didn't have the legal paperwork to do the dispensary.
Yeah, but
it was an illegal dispensary.
Yeah, why didn't they get the paperwork?
Because they're Jay and Silent Bob.
I mean, yes, but remember, Silent Bob does have moments of very sharp business acumen. Actually, he has like consistently sharp business acumen. So it's off characterization for his characters, but getting back to my point about no, we're being retarded on purpose, that's a frequent complaint about reboots and remakes. So he's making his characters in a lazy, poorly thought out way to be an homage to lazy reboots and remakes. So if you're being lazy on purpose to talk about things that are lazy, that's not good filmmaking. That's not good filmmaking. That's not a good decision. And so, of course, Jay and Silent Bob find out that they're making yet another Blunt Man and Chronic movie. So, of course, they have to go to California to stop it again.
Oh, they're making Chronic v. Batman, or Blunt Man.
Blunt Man v. Chronic. That was kind of dumb, but I understand why they were referencing Batman v. Superman, because you have Ben Affleck there.
And it was a terrible movie.
Yeah. So, I understand that. Also, they didn't go with the vagina joke with the V, which kind of threw me off. But instead, they went with vaping. That was like, but why though?
But the whole point was to point out the whole V thing didn't make sense. Like, why would you call it Batman v Superman? Shouldn't it be called Batman versus Superman?
Look. They saved like thousands of dollars per every poster. That was millions of dollars under the budget. I mean, I hate to say that's actually why that happened.
Yeah, that's why in the film sequence with where they were like, we should fight, and he shows him on a cell phone, he just typed out, V question mark, because it was kind of like that. It was making fun of the fact that it was Batman v Superman, not Batman versus Superman.
Let's pause right there on that moment. Jay and Silent Bob and Blunt Man in the movie using text messaging on a phone. I thought that joke could have been interesting, but they didn't do anything interesting with it.
No, and it was very inconsistent, because it was like, oh, Silent Bob can talk now because he has a cell phone, and so we're like, okay, so I'm under the impression that there's something wrong with Silent Bob that prevents him from speaking. It's not that he only talks at times where it's necessary for him to talk, or
when it's dramatically appropriate.
Dramatically, talk, right? Because
that was originally a Greek chorus, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah. But instead, it goes on this wishy-washy thing, or sometimes he can talk with the cell phone, other times he can just go on a Glenn Ross speech.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Mm-hmm. So I mean, like, that is a fair criticism to make, yes.
Yeah, and they also made an eggplant emoji joke where Kevin Smith got to have sex in the movie with a character played by his wife. That just was a weirdly self-indulgent choice.
Yeah. Which, by the way, someone in the audience was like, "That's Alanis Morissette." I was like,
"No."
I had to go, "No, that's Kevin Smith's wife." And they were like,
no. Yeah, that's Kevin Smith's wife.
Yeah.
So that's like something that was like a weirdly self-indulgent choice he made related to the cell phone gag.
By the way, did you notice that the girl that worked at the movies was the girl from Oates and Garfunkel.
Yes.
Okay. Or
So
Garfunkel and Oates.
yeah. So that to me kind of like was like going, bruh, you know, you came up with an idea that was good, but you had 2 jokes.
Yeah.
You had 2 jokes with it, and technically 3 if you want to count the movie inside the movie joke. That wasn't a good use of a recurring gag that you need to have the whole movie with. So you shouldn't have done that.
No.
I mean, it was an interesting idea, but you just shouldn't have done that. At some point in time, you should have said, you know, this just doesn't really work.
Yeah, the
It's like,
the hater tots gag was confusing.
I have no idea what that's from. It's from something, I'm sure. But fuck if I know. There's like an Uber with a guy who made tater tots that he called hater tots that he wanted to sell to teenage girls, but neo-Nazis and skinheads liked it. And the KKK. And I was like, that was really weird. And then that sets up the KKK scene later, which we're going to talk about in more detail a little bit later. So that didn't make any sense to me why that was a thing in the movie, other than to do a kind of sort of setup for the Klan, which didn't make any sense why they were in the movie.
No.
Because it just didn't make sense.
But we did get Chris Jericho.
We did get Chris Jericho. So that's something. And I'm sure if like we would go over the list, there are like more podcasters who are in this movie doing bit parts that we probably didn't notice the first time through. So they go to Chicago. In the Midwest, they break down on the journey, but they reference, blah blah blah.
We're really bearing a lot of leads. We didn't.
Well, where do I need to go back to?
So we need to go back to meeting up with Brody. We also skipped over Justice and the daughter.
They go to the mall from Mallrats to meet up with Brody. Sets them up on the thing, so he references Mallrats. And Jason Lee really didn't seem like he was all that interested in doing this movie. But I think he did it because Jason Mewes was doing this and Kevin had a heart attack. And, wow.
Well, he wasn't interested in doing any movie. He hasn't been working at all. He's been kind of focusing on his family. And
yeah,
he left Scientology, went to Texas, and just kind of focusing on family. So it didn't seem like he wanted to be in any film, not just that it was a Kevin Smith movie.
Yeah. But I mean, I didn't really go into detail about it because, other than the one bit where he defends the Marvel movies, cinematic masterpieces that he masturbates more to than actual porn, as a sort of inside baseball reference to Kevin Smith being a total shell.
Yeah.
Which then gets bookended at the end of the movie with the whole Iron Man sequence, which we'll get to more in a little bit. It wasn't interesting. I mean, it was like, we're revisiting the mall in Mallrats. Oh, we're only going to see one shop.
Well, it's because it's the only shop left.
Right. But I mean, it was a thing I know, but it was really bad as a thing I know. So, but why though?
Because it's a reboot and you have to go and visit Brody at his comic book stash.
Right, but why did they move it to the mall? It didn't really fit well for the story other than, hey, malls are closing. Isn't that crazy, kids? It wasn't a good, well thought out part of the script.
I don't agree, but okay.
I mean, he wanted to tie more loose ends together. I get that, but the whole mall was basically there for malls are going extinct. Isn't that weird, kids? That was the point of the joke. I mean, they could have at least had the guy looking at the magic sailboat for longer in the mall. He could have still been there trying to see that damn sailboat.
But they don't have the magic eye at the mall anymore.
Right, but he could be like a homeless person still staring at where the magic eye used to be. So you see there.
Easton Suplee is not a rotund person anymore. I don't think anybody would recognize him.
Okay, that's fair. But I mean, you get what I'm saying, though. They could have done something with it being the mall for Mallrats. They put Brody's shop in there because they had to go to Brody's shop, but they didn't do anything else with the mall. And other than to make, a joke, hey, there's actual rats in the mall now. That wasn't a good use of the mall part of the story, architecture. It was wasted space. Also, they could have just went inside Kevin Smith's actual comic shop and saved money and invest money somewhere else. So it was just like a weird little bit. Again, maybe
Well, that's
if
what
you're
they
like,
did for the first movie, though.
Well, Brody Shop, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think they should have just still done it that way. It worked, and it made more sense. And also, he could have gotten more references into his failed Comic Book Men show from AMC.
Well, they
So
did.
he could have, right? He did, but in ways that didn't work.
Yeah.
So he could have had those characters in the shop from the show that they were in, and then those references would have worked better. You see what I'm saying about how this is lazy and not well thought out?
No, I'm again. I'm not disagreeing with a lot of the criticism that you make about this movie.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I just disagree with how some work and some don't work.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Kevin, you went in the big thing in the introduction for this movie about like you're passionate about revisiting this stuff after your heart attack, but you're still being lazy. If you're being passionate about revisiting this stuff, shouldn't you put some effort into it? Jesus Christ. What was the other one you wanted me to go back to that I buried the lead on?
Meeting up with his daughter. That was pivotal.
Well, no, I haven't gotten that far yet.
No, if we're talking about the Klansman, then yeah, we are.
Well, no, we talked about the Klansman only in reference to Chris Jericho and the Hater Tots. But I was going into Chicago, so like that's a reboot thing.
Well,
again, it's like we're
hold on. You have to
we're
say that again.
Give me a second here. I will reconnect my connection so I don't sound like a robot.
You're gonna sound like Barry White though. Go ahead.
There's a moment. Oh yeah. Do I sound like Barry White?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. So it's like it was in the last movie, but a little different. Last movie, the big plot contrivance happened in Kansas City. Now it's happening in Chicago. And oh, by the way, lots of movies film in Chicago because it's a very generic suburban but also urban area. So there's a lot of metatextual of it being in Chicago. And the movie headquarters was in Chicago. But none of that really pays anything off in the movie or sets anything up in the movie.
Well, they did talk about how it connects to Dogma.
Right. No. They did. It does actually connect to Dogma because that's where Loki did his little voiceover about that. But it doesn't really...
And Shermer, Illinois.
Yeah, it doesn't really make the movie make more sense. It doesn't really push the story forward in an effective way.
Right, because this is Jay and Silent Bob. It's all about referencing stuff more than it is building on narratives.
Or making a good story, apparently.
Well, Jay and Silent Bob wasn't really necessarily a good story. It was just a series of...
It was a good story.
Remember this?
It was a Stoner Road comedy. It was a basic Stoner Road comedy with, a paint of references on top of it. This doesn't even have that minimal foundation. So
I don't think the foundation was there in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
I definitely think it was because we both agree that was a better movie.
Yes. Because there was more of a story.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's the bare foundation.
And the jokes landed.
Yeah, because the jokes weren't lazy.
Yeah.
So they go to Chicago. The uptight Uber driver, they say, "Hey, man, we got these 3 magical doobies. You smoke one of them." He said, "Well, I've never smoked a joint because blah, blah, blah. I was afraid of the police."
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, is it illegal to smoke weed in Illinois? Let's see.
Probably, yeah. It's a mob town. Or it's a mob... Yeah, it's a mob town.
Just a second. Let's see what Google says. Because that's kind of important. Actually, recreational marijuana is legal in Illinois. As of laws that were passed recently. So...
Probably smoking outside in front of a fast food place.
No. That was something that was just developing in Illinois as a law. So the movie is on point for it being illegal in Illinois, but later, like a couple months later, from when we actually saw the movie, it then becomes legal, which is weird. So of course, Jay sees his ex-girlfriend Justice, and he has another musical montage. But it's just like the old musical montage was more of like an homage to old rock and roll videos. Like Jay's supposedly going through a process of not yet being matured. So why didn't you just have a sexy weather woman in a, reference to an older music video? It was just like, hey, let's put some screen special effects and do something vaguely sexual, and also reference pegging, while Silent Bob's having relations with the store manager in the bathroom, which is multi-gendered and for handicaps.
Okay, so yeah,
Everybody
I
can.
just checked the laws. It doesn't become legal until January 1st of next year.
Yeah. I checked that too. So
Okay.
it was on point with that because a lot of places have weed being legal. So again, that's something that really bugged me that this movie didn't actually touch on any of that. So anyway, his girlfriend's there, has a weird sexy vision, smacks him around, then they go outside, guy's gone. So they write a mean review about him on Uber, which they're paying with, by the way, with a stolen credit card. Which I don't remember. Does that guy ever come back in to play in the
No,
movie? I don't remember if he did. No. So why did they steal the credit card then?
because they didn't have access to any of their financial stuff because they lost the legal rights to use their names.
Yeah, but they're weed dealers though. So they have cash.
Right, but you can't use a cash on an app.
That's not what I mean
Your
though.
cell phone
Why
can't accept cash payments.
Right, but I mean that. But what I mean is, why didn't they just use cash instead of the cell phone? Since they weren't going to do anything interesting with the cell phone.
Because you need a credit card to use stuff with the cell phone, and that's
Right, but they weren't going to use the cell phone effectively in the story. So why make that?
well because they couldn't get on the plane, and the lady told them, "Hey, why don't you use the Uber app?" And they're like, "Oh, okay, we'll use the Uber app." Oh, we can't.
Also,
we don't have credit cards or anything because our names were taken from us.
yeah, but
So
also
we'll just steal this guy's credit card because he was a real dick.
But also the Ubering from New Jersey to California. That's an insane person's idea of a story. Nobody can afford that, like at all. That was like really just a weird story decision. It's like Uber being written about in a movie by somebody who's never used an Uber. But I think Kevin Smith has. I'm pretty sure he's used Uber. So
Yeah,
he
well,
should know that.
they said, hey, that's going to be very expensive, but they didn't care
Yeah,
because they weren't paying for
but
it.
literally Uber doesn't let you do trips that long.
I don't know. I was curious one day and I checked to see how much it would cost to Uber to like another state, and it said I could do it.
Right, but it's usually like
But
an adjacent state.
Yeah, no driver will do it.
Yeah. So that's just like a small nitpick. I'll give you that. So anyway, they go to Justice's house, and then they get mugged by a kid who's played by Kevin Smith's kid, which gets into a point where I want to talk about the character of Millennial Falcon or Millennium Falcon. So she's super smart. She's also super corrupt and criminal and degenerate. That was a terrible decision for her character. So, like, her mom is playing the pure goody goody, Chicago's beloved lesbian weather lady, right? So, why don't you have her, like, be the goody goody kid, but have that dark underbelly side inside her? And then she and Jay bond over that. But then he realizes, wait, that's wrong. And then he flips it around and makes himself and her both a better person. And then you make the story about what it's supposed to be about men becoming better through their children. That's why this is again a point where I look at this movie and say this movie is super lazy.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't think out its own ideas. And it just throws in ideas to make characters seem cool, but they're not actually made cool by the ideas. They're just goofy. It's a character who's super badass at fighting and hockey and can knife people and does drugs, but is also a straight A student. No, none of that makes sense. That's bad writing. Stop. She also has a black deaf friend, and her deafness isn't used effectively in the movie. We'll get to that in a minute, because the deafness is referenced when they reference A Quiet Place. And so when you reference A Quiet Place and you have somebody with a hearing aid, their hearing aid should be used to disrupt the bad guys. And it's not. And that's, again, super lazy storytelling. So Jay meets the lesbian girlfriend's current lesbian spouse. They make a small penis and sexual inadequacy joke. And then they leave. And then the kids knife them until they get an Uber to continue the trip to California. But the kids later in the movie say...
But by the way, they're also... Yeah, they're not allowed to say, I'm your dad. That was the thing.
Yeah. But that's also stupid. Because that doesn't add any... There's no moment in the movie, except for one, where he even has any reason to want to tell her he's her dad.
A couple times. There's a few times. So the one time that they were in the car and they were all complaining that every single person in the car was like didn't have a father.
Yeah, no. That time was a moment where emotionally his character should have come forward with that. But there wasn't really another moment to me that felt like there should have been an emotional pull for him to say, yeah, I gave my word, but fuck it, I'm a stoner anyway, so I'll just break my word right now. There wasn't really a point in the movie other than that one that made sense to me, and there should have been. If you're going to make that a big deal, a stake of the movie, there should have been more points where he wanted to. He had this urgent need to tell her.
Here's the thing, though. Here's what I think you're off track. So Clerks was supposed to be like an independent comedy film, right? Where all the characters were realistic and everything.
Right.
Mallrats was supposed to be a Smart Porky's, but
it wasn't a Smart or Porky's.
But it turned everybody goofy. So Jay and Silent Bob that was their first in time. So every movie has like a different interpretation of Jay and Silent Bob, right? So Clerks, They were serious drug dealers. Mallrats, they were goofy, jokey characters. Dogma, they were, or Chasing Amy, they were kind of the voice of reason, right?
They're a Greek chorus throughout all the movies, though. Except for the two movies where they're the lead characters.
Yeah. So you had Dogma, which they were the idiot, inept people who never get laid. Which, by the way, that's not the case for the previous movies. The previous movies, you can tell that they were getting something, but in Clerks, all of a sudden they were incels. Then Jay and Silent Bob, they were still incels, but they were goofy. They were kind of a mixture of Mallrats and Dogma,
right?
Where they're even more goofy and silly. But Jay and Silent Bob, every single one of these movies, they're supposed to be like, hey, like this is a different kind of story that we're telling, but they all exist in the same universe.
But here's the thing.
And Jay and Silent Bob was supposed to be
the story they're telling, because Kevin Smith said that's the story they're telling at the beginning of the movie, is about a man growing into a better man through his children. So that needed to be in the characterization of Jay and the kid,
right? But it is a movie, but it's still a sequel to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back,
right?
Which Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back isn't supposed to be a serious film. It's supposed to be a celebration, a goofy stoner celebration of all of the things that happened in the previous film, so they could wrap up the universe in a nice tight bow, so that he could go off and write things that were completely unrelated, which lasted for about 5 minutes.
Right. But again, the point of the movie is all about dads growing through their relationship with their children. Mm-hmm. So if you don't write his relationship with his child in a way where that tension means something in the movie, then you're not doing what you're here to do with the movie. You could still be an irreverent, let's do another love letter to our fans, and still have that be built into the characterization and beats of the movie. So Kevin Smith wanted it to be about something.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing
the work to do that.
I'm agreeing that he failed in that attempt.
No, he didn't even try.
Right.
Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
He didn't even try.
But at the same time, he's trying to balance two things, and he doesn't do it well. He's trying to balance a goofy stoner comedy that's
But
just
it's not even
a
that goofy stoner of a
right.
comedy.
But all right, but but he's trying to balance a stupid goofy stoner comedy that's just a celebration of the View Askew universe and just constantly referencing the stuff, and all the jokes are supposed to be that, while at the same time having an underlying message about family and fatherhood, which he
Right.
doesn't know how to
But
balance either one of them.
and also
So
then
all
there's
the
the whole
elements of
thing
both
about,
don't work. But at the same
and then
time,
there's
we
the
can't.
third pillar,
Hold on,
which is
hold
reboot.
on! Stop interrupting me. But
Sorry.
so, but the point is that this. But what we're end up getting is just the worst part of both.
There's also the third pillar, which is referencing how shallow and empty Hollywood cash grab reboot and remake culture is. So
Which
he's
this
really not
is.
doing any of right. So he's not doing any of the three things well that
Right.
he's trying to do in this movie.
Right.
So he's doing nothing well.
Right. But we're trying to like analyze this as if it's like if it's Clerks, but it's not Clerks.
No.
It's Jay and
No,
Silent Bob
Kevin-
Strike Back. But
I'm only judging
worse.
Kevin Smith. I'm only judging Kevin Smith by the standard he says he's setting for this movie. I'm only trying to judge him by the standard he has told me literally before this movie started that he was doing.
Right.
I'm trying to judge him on the work he said he delivered, and he delivered poor work.
Right, but at the same time, I think it's basically Conkin overselling a good idea.
So what you're saying basically is I should have just said, yeah, whatever, Kevin.
Yeah, whatever, Kevin. That's what you should do a lot of times, and just look at this movie, see what it was, and then go whatever. Because
the thing is, he has the ability to do all these things I'm complaining about.
But you got to remember that he also sold Dogma as being a stupid stoner comedy movie, and it wasn't.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
that was not how it got sold in theaters.
Okay.
That was not how the advertisements ran.
Right, but that's what he was trying to present it at any time he brought it on any time of those talk shows that were going on at the time. He was like, man,
yeah,
he's like, well, I don't know why all these people are getting mad at me. I don't see why this is just a silly movie that I made.
But that's part of him is the pitch man. You know, when you're a salesman, you like create a persona. So that was his persona. That wasn't how he sold
but all of the marketing of this movie, when it's not just him fucking bullshitting with some TV host, right? All the trailers and everything was supposed to be like, this is supposed to be like the new How High, not the new Dogma.
I didn't get that from the trailers. That's me.
That's what I got.
So let's get back to the kids.
Okay.
Let's get back to the kids. So they take a second Uber, even though at the point in time of taking an Uber from New Jersey to Illinois, somebody's credit card would have been canceled already. So that's another element of things in this movie that don't work. So they take edibles and they do the classic joke of, haha, old timers who smoke weed think they can eat a whole ton of edibles. And this gets into one of the moments of the movie I really liked. Was Jay and Silent Bob in a weed-induced trance talking to the guys from How High.
Yeah, Method Man.
I really liked that scene. Method and Redman. I really liked that scene. Everything about that scene was good.
Yeah.
And it did a really good job setting the tone, saying, here's what this movie's about. This also should have been the thing much earlier in the movie.
Yeah, I will agree.
Like they could have just had Jay and Silent Bob smoking some weed and like have Jay like get stupid high. They could even have done it with edibles and him talking to, Method and Red. And he's like, yo, dude, you got a kid out there, man. You've banged all these kind of chicks. He's like, yeah. And Silent Bob's going, no. Hey, what about Justice? And Silent Bob shrugs and said, that could have been, again, a better thing where it'll be like sort of like that could have been an interesting thing. And then they could have found adjacent to that, oh yeah, they're making another shitty remake of your comic book. That again, literally, this feels like a not well thought out first draft that just got polished, as opposed to refined.
I'll agree.
So they end up getting posed in gay repose. And the movie implied that maybe they're having sex with each other. But now they had Silent Bob as the more masculine of the two, which just felt weird and out of place with the tone of the comedy they were going for in this movie. It would have totally fit in an earlier View Askew movie. It just felt weird and out of place for what they were trying to do with this movie. And then we made the Diversity Teen Girl Squad. I hated what they did with all of their characters. All of them were poorly written and dumb. And the Muslim girl, I was actually angry at how dumbly she was written.
It could have worked. And
It could have
I can
worked.
tell you exactly how it could have worked better. Or how about this? How it could have worked.
What's your how we fixed?
I agree.
What
Like,
was your
I know what he was trying to do, and it didn't work because he couldn't. Again, he has like this balancing issue with throughout this whole entire movie. He's trying to balance two really good ideas, but he's balancing them poorly. It's like,
I don't
why
think
can't
he had
I?
two really good ideas.
It's that guy saying, why can't I hold all these limes? The idea is that he's trying to balance, like, let's make fun of the fact that all of these movies are just throwing in diversity unnecessarily, while at the same time respecting the idea of having diversity.
I don't think he was making fun of diversity with this in mind in the movie.
Well, he was, because they kind of make fun of it at a certain point in the movie.
Well, there are points in time where they ironically reference how weird it is, but I don't think they were making fun of it in the movie. I don't think they were making fun of it ever.
They were kind of taking jabs at the SJW things, which, by the way, I also need to point out that in Zombieland, they also do that as well. I mean, they make fun of the fact that they're in a hippie cult thing. It's in this movie as well, but it's not as on the nose as it is in Zombieland.
I don't think that Smith was intending to make fun of these. I think he was saying, let's have a diverse, multicultural group of girls that are together as friends, and they're all united by one thing: the fact that all their dads ran out on them, which goes back to the theme.
Yeah.
However, you got a Muslim girl who's a Syrian refugee, who's a refugee because she was nearly raped, and she nearly got honor killed by her brother over that. And
No, she wasn't nearly raped. She was her boyfriend touched her boob. Is what happened.
Right. But given context,
maybe, yeah. Who knows?
There's probably more than just touching boob going.
But yeah, but I think we're thinking too deep on a goofy stoner movie.
So she was nearly killed in an honor killing, and she had to leave to be a refugee. And she's dressing as an observant Muslim girl, but she is as vulgar as all the other girls in the movie. So why is she dressing as an observant Muslim girl other than to say, oh, hey, people, she's a Muslim? That's lazy. It's lazy and thoughtless. And also, there's a whole big gag about Chris Hemsworth being a sexy, attractive man. Chris Hemsworth is, of course, a sexy and attractive man. Wouldn't it have been something if she was a more demure, more respectful, more, appropriate Muslim girl? But as they go on this journey of self-discovery, she realizes, hey, you know what? Maybe I should embrace this stuff. And hey, damn, Chris Hemsworth is sexy. Then you could have made a good joke that could have been paid off. You could have set up a girl who dresses as an observant Muslim.
Yeah, but stoners won't remember that long.
See, like, I don't think the core fan base of Kevin Smith fans are smoking that much weed anymore.
Yes. I agree.
I don't think he knows what his audience is anymore.
Right. Which is why he needs to make things like Clerks and Dogma and not Jay and Silent Bob.
Anyway.
And Mallrats.
So
this movie is much more in the vein of Mallrats and Jay and Silent Bob, which that audience, which he both acknowledges it and forgets it at the same time by saying, hey, we're going to make this much more of an emotional movie. Yeah, we don't even need to go into the spoilers at all. We don't need to dig into it too much. We should talk about the problems of this movie, which I think.
Well, wait! I have to go deeper into the Teen Girl Squad before we get into why the Ku Klux Klan scene didn't work.
Well, no, it didn't. It's not that it didn't work. It was just.
Hold up.
But it's a but why moment. I'm not gonna lie.
I know what he was thinking, but it's still a but why moment.
Okay.
And the last character is Chinese girl who understands English but doesn't speak it allegedly, and she's doing a podcast, but actually she's a secret Russian collusion spy, which is the big but why of the whole movie that really made me angry at the end of the movie. So they are completely hyper competent characters, which again goes into the diversity in current movies theme, but then they end up getting kidnapped by the Klan. So that's the reason the scene is there, is so they show you, hey, we're not being lazy about that. But then the whole sequence with the Klan is lazy. There's a lazy reference to Glengarry Glen Ross, one of the most iconic Alec Baldwin speeches. But I mean, if you're going to do that, why not just get Alec Baldwin to do it? I'm sure Kevin Smith could have gotten Alec Baldwin to come in and do that joke for him.
Or at least Stephen Baldwin.
Or at least Stephen Baldwin. Or Billy. Or I'm sure there's a Baldwin who could have done that joke for him. That would have made it pay off better. Because Silent Bob using that as his talking moment prevents him from talking during the end of the movie or during a climactic point in the movie when it makes sense for him to talk. So it gets to the problem with his fundamental characterization of Silent Bob and not knowing when he should or shouldn't talk. Which again gets to the point that he doesn't understand what his own characters are about anymore. And so they get to Chronic Con, which is Chronic Comic Con, but it's also a takeoff on the conventions they have for the Big Lebowski. So they're trying to be a meta-textual commentary on geek culture as a whole, but doing it in a way that seems realistic when you just should just use Comic-Con. Although Comic-Con probably would have been dicks and charged him more money to do it that way, even though it looks like he filmed it at Comic-Con in San Diego. So, take of that what you will. And they go into Hot Topic, which was a product placement. That whole sequence in the Hot Topic was definitely a product placement. And Hot Topic is saying, hey, fellow diverse teens, wouldn't you like this gay Jay and Silent Bob shirt to show how gay, inclusive, and tolerant you are? So that's why I don't think they're making fun of it. They're just pointing out, man, isn't this tacky? But then, okay,
No.
we agree it's tacky, then what are you going to say satirical about it to make that point interesting? And they don't.
Well, it's not going for that. It's just
no, that's what they were going for.
Mm-hmm.
They were going for pointing out that it was tacky merchandise to be a cheap cash grab in for a cheap cash grab in movie. And they're doing that as a product placement from the tacky merchant. Well, I'm not saying it's an SJW movie. I'm saying it's a movie that wants to be agnostic about that conflict going on in pop culture. It's wanting to say, hey, different stuff is for the kids, man. Use that as a way to connect with your kids because that's what matters. But
it's trying to be safe while at the same time mock it.
I don't think it's mocking it. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit. It's mocking it just enough so that the pitchfork and torch mob doesn't come after him.
I think it's saying, hey, fellow teens, we see ironically how terrible all of this is, but we also unironically enjoy it just like you. Yeah. It feels very out of touch. And then they have a chase scene through the con because there's always a chase scene with Jay and Silent Bob. It features characters from the chase scene from the last movie. Then it goes to the Ben Affleck thing where we get Ben Affleck giving the characters the bit of wisdom to have them get over themselves, become better people, and then get to the ending.
Yeah, but by the way, this scene is like probably the best part of the movie. And I'm wondering because originally this was not in the script.
Yeah,
they were already making this movie when Ben Affleck signed on to do it. They were already like mostly done. So there was another scene there which brings all these things together. Was Joey Lauren Adams also supposed to be in this scene? Who knows? Was she just a green screened in and we just didn't notice it because it was that good? Who knows? Like I don't know what's going on with this, but I'm wondering how the original script handled this, and it was probably a whole lot worse, all things considered. Yeah, but it wasn't until they were already starting to wrap up things that this was actually a reshoot.
So wait, it was supposed to be the Snoopy Dog, or Snoop Dogg?
Was it?
I mean, I could see how that would work.
I don't know. No. What happened was they were already wrapped up.
Well, no.
They were already starting to wrap up.
There was an article that was supposed to be a thing with Snoop Dogg. I mean,
I
could kind of see how that would work, but I think this was so much better of an idea.
Yeah. And
this is one of the points where the ideas weren't lazy.
Yeah.
And so
having Jay's real daughter in the scene, that was good too.
Yeah.
I did like the whole bit about like, oh my god, you had sex with her again and knocked her up, and they were like, no, we did it in vitro because we're adults, we're not stupid stoners. kind of an attitude. That's not what he said, but that was kind of the like.
And this was the second point where they reinforced the crass commercialism of using representation in movies, where they talk about Chasing Amy as a disposable Netflix series. So that to me isn't coming off as making fun of that concept, because the movie kind of frames it as, oh, won't that be interesting seeing the queer perspective on Chasing Amy? Chasing Amy wasn't really that good of a movie.
Well, I think that movie would have been better from that aspect. Not in the 90s. If it was made today, that would have been a better way of putting it.
So, fantasy movie maker hat on.
Okay.
If you're gonna make a movie like that today, you obviously make the Holden character a female.
Right. Well, no.
Hear me out. There are lots of women who are totally enamored with the metrosexual gay guy idea.
Oh, okay.
So that's how you would do that as a modern take on that movie.
I don't. I think it would have been I think it would have been a better film if it was from the lesbian's perspective from the very beginning. Like she's a lesbian. She's doing she's doing all this crazy shit, or she's just doing a bunch of crazy
character. The movie's not about her character.
Right.
It's about how Ben Affleck's character is an awful human being.
Right.
And an awful narcissistic human being. It's about his journey to become a good person by doing horrendous things.
Right. And I think that would only work is if you swap the gender, which I think that idea would work, or you take it from the lesbian's perspective where she goes like, "Oh, I'm gonna date this straight guy and I'm gonna fix him." Then it could have worked at a proper rom-com.
No, that's the same as what I was suggesting. Just you make her a lesbian, which isn't useful for that character being selfish and narcissistic.
No, I think hold on, maybe I'm explaining it wrong. So there's two ways of doing it, right? The one that you suggested, where she's a female comic book character who meets
a comic book guy pitching on a gay comic book guy,
right?
Who's kind of bi and ends up being more omnisexual as you develop the movie along.
Right, that would have worked. The other way would have been
especially if you have the male character Ryan Reynolds,
right? But then the other version that would have worked better would have had if you were following Joey Lawrence Adams, and she meets this guy, and she goes like, "Oh, this is a great guy," and then it turns out like, "Oh, he was at the very end, like he's just
a complete
douchebag."
That's not
because he was
movie. The point of a tragedy is at the end of the tragedy, the tragic figure learns and grows.
But he doesn't.
This is a movie where this is about taking a good character.
The only person the only person who learned and grew was the lesbian in that movie.
No, she didn't learn and grow. She was the same person throughout. Ben Affleck's character is the one who learned and grew. That was the whole point of the ending of the movie, which was terrible. But that was the whole point.
No. But she did learn. She did learn and grow.
No, she didn't. She was the same exact character throughout the whole movie.
No, she just came. She came to terms with the fact that she did like Dick after all.
but she had always liked Dick.
But she wasn't
That was
honest.
never. That was
she was
never not a thing.
No, she wasn't honest with herself about it because she was trying to be cool with their gay friends who were like, no, vagina only.
But she still wasn't honest about it at the end, and in this movie, she wasn't honest about it. So she stays the same person throughout the whole characterization.
She becomes Hooper.
Anyway,
she becomes a lesbian version of Hooper, where she's okay with Dick, but when she's on stage, she's the Louis Farrakhan of lesbians.
No, I don't. No.
I've had much more time to think about this movie than you have. Anyways.
So then we get to the terrible ending.
Okay.
Of this movie, and this ending is somehow worse than Chasing Amy's ending. And
no.
I don't know how they made it worse.
No. Oh my God, I could not disagree more.
So what was the point of, well, let me rephrase that. I don't mean the emotional ending. I'm talking about the ending at the Comic-Con ending. That whole sequence was just trash.
Chasing Amy is a high bar for bad endings. Really high bar.
Right, like the part where Jay and Silent Bob were sitting with their daughter and with his daughter in front of this quick stop. That's a positive ending element. But I'm talking about all the stuff at the Chronicon before that was absolute trash. The Chinese girl being a secret Russian spy, Kevin Smith in an Iron Man outfit marking out to the Iron Man movies instead of the Star Wars movie, which gets back to the theme of reboots and remakes being slightly different, but just different enough to make you think you're buying a new ticket. But also being unabashedly excited about being in the Iron Man special effects setup for the Avengers movies. That was all garbage.
But what'd you expect?
All of that was garbage.
What'd you expect? Look how the other movie ended.
The other movie ended fine.
No, with the goofy ass gunfight.
But that wasn't what was about. The goofy ass gunfight was there for anybody who wasn't interested in the actual character stuff for Jay and Silent Bob getting their money and then going to beat up the nerds on the internet. Because that's what that movie was all about. Was getting paid and beating up nerds on the internet. That was the heart of that movie. Mm-hmm. That was why Kevin Smith wrote a lot of that into that movie, was because he was kind of pissy and annoyed at shitty nerds on the internet.
Okay. I'm not going to disagree with you, but except for the fact that you said that it's worse than Chasing Amy. The Chasing Amy ending was really stupid.
Right, but this was, so we have a Russian supervillain for no real reason. Also, they could have set up the Russian supervillain during the entire sequence from when you introduced the character by just putting some subtitles in and having her not speak in Chinese. It's again lazy. You know that's where you were taking your movie. Just pay off. Set up, pay off. That's all you needed to do.
I don't think he was interested in setting up and paying off. He was interested in stoner joke.
But there weren't really that many stoner jokes.
Yeah. The jokes that worked, right, were things that I noticed because I've been so into this world for 25 years, or maybe not. I didn't see Clerks until I saw Mallrats. So yeah, a little less than that. But it was the things like Silent Bob typing on his phone like this, and all you got was an emoji, which is supposed to be a reference to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where people were making fun of Kevin Smith typing on his keyboard. My keyboard is not connected to my computer, so I don't ruin anything.
Yeah, no.
Like this. And that was a kind of inside baseball on a lot of web forums and stuff for a long time. So there was little things like that in the movie, strung out throughout the movie, that if you understood that stuff, it was hilarious. Same James St. James not being able to say his real name because it's intellectual property. While they're talking about intellectual property, was the reason why they can't say James on Bob.
There's those little intelligence seeds in a giant sea of stupid.
I agree, but I think that the stupid was on purpose, or being retarded on purpose. No, I was just pretending to be retarded.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's a cop out. But of course, I think
that's again.
He may have referenced cop out to let everybody know he was copping out on this movie.
Yeah.
So,
but I think this movie would have worked better had I smoked weed before I saw it. But even still, I had a good time going to a double feature and seeing a stupid.
It was interesting.
Couple of stupid,
an interesting experience.
View Askew movies. Where they were just referencing themselves.
We do want to get to
some inside baseball
heartfelt ending where Jay's finally come out to his daughter that he's her dad, that she's finally experienced the one thing she's always wanted in her life. And they're sitting in front of the store, telling her stories like a dad would tell a daughter. That was great.
Yeah, that was the only part of the emotional journey that they were trying to take me down that I actually went down a little bit. I was like, "Aw." That was the only part that I had an awe moment, was when they were standing outside of the shop.
But the cherry on top of the humor was, oh yeah, we've been putting gum in the locks of the quick stop for 25 years. That was
like one of the very. That was the joke that hit, the intentional, like, stupid joke that actually worked. In this whole
that
movie,
wasn't even a stupid
and
joke
not. I mean,
that was an intelligent joke,
right? But I mean, it actually worked and hit well. All the other jokes were like
set up, and paid off.
Yeah, all the other jokes were, anywhere. There was a couple of ones where I was like, there was a whole sequence I remember. I don't remember which one, but there was a whole little sequence where I was like, this is not working. Stop doing this. And the instance that I was like thinking like, all right, this needs to end. It ended. So I was like, okay, we didn't get into cringe territory. But that was the worst.
But
all the other stuff were either like, ha ha ha, funny. Tommy Chong I thought was clever. Sorry, I think it was clever. How else would you have an Alfred in this movie? It had to be Tommy Chong or Cheech. Had to be.
Yeah, but the movie within the movie went on too long when they were all getting high. That drug out too long for me. I mean, it's totally a conversation people high on pot would have.
Yeah.
But they needed to like tighten that up a little bit to be more appropriately cinematic. But yeah, so that's the movie.
You hated it.
I will say.
I thought it was.
I will say you've made me hate it less.
Okay.
This experience has made me hate it less, but it's still super lazy.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And Kevin Smith was like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally into this thing because of my heart attack and my friend being sober and blah blah blah." No. You're not, buddy.
No, I think what it really boils down to wasn't that. It was more like, I don't want Yoga Hosers to be my last movie. I'll make anything to make that not the case.
Yeah, and then he made something.
Say what you want about Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It was no Yoga Hosers.
So,
I mean, Yoga Hosers is unwatchable. Like,
oh shit, we forgot to mention one of the movies I saw.
Oh, what movie?
Which is also a zombie in its own way. Gemini Man. Starring Will Smith versus Will Smith.
Let me watch that, and we'll do that next week.
We'll do that next week.
Is it something? Is it something I should watch? Because I was always uninterested in that. If you tell me to watch it, I'll watch it. If it's not, we'll do it right now.
Then we'll do it right now. Because it's not worth you wasting your time watching it.
Really? Oh, okay.
So
I'll pull up a graphic for it.
So, Gemini Man is all about Will Smith trying to resurrect his character and his acting ability and failing. So it's about Will Smith being top badass military soldier guy, top assassin, about ready to retire. And then he retires, but he knows too much. Government starts to plot to kill him. Plot to kill him goes awry, so they send out an assassin that's his own clone. That's been run by the company that was run by his crazy commanding officer. And the special effects are
Fucking
good when
French.
there's no lights. The special effects for the young Will Smith are good when there are no lights, but when there are lights on, it's terrible. It does not look effective at all. I think Will Smith did a good job acting like he would have acted when he was, 20 years younger. I think he did a good job with that. Plot was very basic. Action was nowhere near as good as it should have been. And in places, it felt like this should have been a Tom Cruise movie. And this was a movie that's like 25 years in the making, but they didn't make it 25 years ago because they didn't think they could have made Will Smith look old effectively. But now they're able to do a almost convincing digital face swap with young Will Smith. And it's not doing well in the box office, but this is actually one of the best movies Will Smith has ever done with black people. So the black audience is finally showing up for Will Smith. And you can look at their faces here, and they don't look quite right. They don't look quite right at all.
Yeah.
I don't recommend this movie because it has a concept of clones as drones, but it doesn't do anything with the concept. It just says, oh yeah, these are totally like similar things. Instead of building a whole movie around that concept and exploring the ethical and moral quandaries, we only mention them at the third act finisher for the movie. And then never talk about them again. So, on the plate for me for next show is...
I want to pitch something to you.
Okay.
Go ahead and do it, and then I'll pitch it.
So on my plate, I'm probably gonna see this Sunday. I'm gonna try to pick up 3 movies: Maleficent, Zombieland, and the Addams Family movie. I'm gonna try to pick up all 3 of those if I can Sunday. And then Thursday coming up, we got, let's see, we got some trash. So there's The Current War, which was all about Edison versus Tesla that got an oopsie doopsie because it's connected to Weinstein. We got Kevin Sorbo and dumb red state porn of a movie. And we got a movie about an app where people get killed because the app predicts when they die.
So,
there's a One Piece movie
well,
out.
I'm going to go see The Lighthouse, which is what I really wanted to see today, but I was like, I should do, because I figured that you would probably gone and seen it. So I was like, I'm okay. I'll pick up Zombieland, and you didn't
Let's
see
look
it.
at The Lighthouse. Let me see what this is all
Which
about.
is that's supposed to be what director is that? Isn't it Paul Wes Anderson? No, it's
No.
Robert Eggers.
Huh.
It's supposed to be really good. It's supposed to be one of those high art type of movies. So I'm definitely gonna go see that, The Lighthouse, which is what everybody's nutting themselves over right now, thinking it's gonna be the best movie, which it looks like it could be. Still haven't seen Judy yet. I'll get around to that, but I need to catch up on Halloween stuff, so I'll probably catch up when it comes out.
Also,
On the
you may
public
be able to
library.
catch the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Maybe we could do that for like next week, or like actually wait, we have another show before Halloween.
No, I have a pitch for you,
Okay.
but I'm going to present it in a way. Okay, I want you to be,
Okay.
I want you to pretend that you're a Hollywood executive. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm Frank Marshall.
Okay.
So I produced all of Steven Spielberg's movies. Are you interested?
Sure.
All right. I also got a book written by Michael Crichton, which is the guy
Hey,
who wrote
that sounds amazing.
who wrote Jurassic Park. You still interested?
Wow. That sounds amazing.
Okay. I'm also going to get John Patrick Shanley, the Academy Award-winning writer of Moonstruck, to adapt it. You still interested?
Wow. Yeah.
And it'll be shot by Alan David Drew, who did E.T. Do you want to make this movie?
I'm definitely interested in making this movie.
Congratulations. You just made Congo. Let's watch Congo for next week.
Oh. Fuck, I forgot about that. We'll try to squeeze in Congo.
Yeah, let's try to do Congo.
But I'm thinking we should, for 2 weeks from now, do something more Halloween-y, even though that's technically the first.
Well, we should definitely do it. We'll wait until after Halloween to do Congo,
Yeah.
but Congo should definitely be on the platter.
Yeah.
I forgot about that great little bit that by Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. Well, that's our show for today. So, in honor of Jay and Silent Bob, Snookins.
Snoochie Boochies.
All